ungeamka naye leo ungekuwa umeenda mbali sana hii. So and we must celebrate you.
There are 600 million people now globally estimated to be living with diabetes in the world. So it is a major health problem. It's the largest single disease rising pandemic that we're dealing with right now.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Presidency is fairly interesting in the sense that it will actually take us to a new consciousness.
Swali zile watu hawaulizi na swali muuliza na shangala ni aje kwani huku kunaendaje?
30 billion shillings annually on travel alone in public service.
A Kenyan can even demonstrate every single day of his life that Ruto must go. That is the only message of his demonstration. That is his right.
That bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of those who are in the right.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
SRC's mandate is constitutional. It's not an advice. It's actually something you must do.
Must do. Like now you abandon, of course, the narrative of Wheelbarrow, Mutuamjengo, Mamamboga, and all those, that rosy narrative.
Your expenditure is 3.3 trillion and you're collecting only 2.5. Out of that 2.5, you're spending 1.8 trillion to service loans and so forth.
That the CDF kit, it's itself a symptom of corruption.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord. It shouldn't be like that.
I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning. No, say it again.
Good morning.
Well done.
How are you?
My good morning is good morning yours.
Is good morning mine?
Yep.
Okay. Nakucheki.
Mambo?
Salama.
Uko leo.
Mambo poa.
Uko poa leo asubuhi. A very good morning to you.
To you too.
It
is the 21st day?
22nd, my dear. It's the 22nd of January. It's over. It's done. January came, said hello, and 9 days from now, you'll be clicking on. You'll be clicking on February, and you're getting into the second month of 2026. Things that are happening really quickly. So the 76 days of January is almost over. And I'm just hoping everybody's doing okay.
Mimi niko salama nashukuru.
How was your day yesterday?
Easy actually. I can't complain.
That's good. How's mama? Okay. The smile that comes on your face.
She doing well, yeah.
That's good.
She doing well.
Happy to hear it. And I told you, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's going to be fine. We're getting into Tuesday, folks. And I read, yesterday, it's a whole process. So yesterday I went to get an MRI done. I still have to go back today.
You entered inside that tunnel?
No, I didn't. I'm going to do that today.
Why?
Because there's just 2 million people there. And it was just, what that struck me was that, so sitting in the waiting bay, of course, people are coming in. So the center where all sorts of things are done, MRI, CT scans, ultrasounds, etc., etc. And so this lady, suddenly there's some commotion there. And so two or three people are helping this lady through. And she's she's pretty old, you could tell. But then the thing that told me about how old she was, that she was bent over literally, and she's walking with 2 sticks, not even like the orthopedic sticks, like literally branches, sticks that have been smoothed off then for her to be able to move. And so here I am thinking, oh my God, my knee is so sore, I need to get this thing checked out, blah blah blah, so that I can go back to the doctor. This lady is in evident pain for her to move with this stick next to the thing, and everybody is hustling and bustling about her trying to move. And you know what she said it in Swahili, but she said, just let me be, I can do it. I've walked all these years. I need to see the doctor. Maybe he can straighten me a little bit, but let me do it. I can actually do it. And I was like,
let me just
wow.
move.
In that moment, she was encouraged. Here you can imagine, you're bent over. You're not vertical the way you should normally be. You're bent over. Every step hurts. Every thought even hurts. But through that, she said, let me push through this pain because I can actually get there. And I thought to myself, wow. In that moment, I was like, hey, this is the picture that essentially that even in the worst of situations where the walls seem like they're crumbling down, you can actually push through it. So that old beautiful woman yesterday was an example for me about how, we can push through it, folks.
Keep pushing. It's not easy. No one is promising you that it's going to be roses. But keep pushing. At the end of the day, even roses have thorns, but people love them.
This is very true. So there is your morsel of encouragement this morning. My old lady friend yesterday did it for me, and she's probably going to be in my mind for a very long time. And a very good morning to you as you get into the Situation Room this morning. Awuor, good morning. Very good. She has even waved to everybody in the world. Joyline is here. She came. Have you seen somebody who can run in 4-inch heels? 6-inch, 4, 5-inch. Okay. All right. So everybody's in the room this morning and getting it into play. Karibuni sana, and a very good morning to you. Our audience is on KTN. Good morning and welcome. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Dennis Aseto Okoh here with you at 6:15 as we get into things this morning. Our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X, and we're getting into those conversations today. And as to what we will be talking about, let me let you into that bit of information. I hope that you're well, and that even though you may not be, that you will be able to hang on to hope that you will get there at some point. Sawa sawa. And let me tell you what our conversations will be this morning. At 7 a.m., we will talk with... At 7 a.m., we will talk with... where did they go? They disappeared. Oh, no, here they are. Dr. Kanchori Daniel is an advocate, and he forms our Justice Thursday conversation today. Is Kenya's politics citizen-centered? I think we already know the answer to this, but then we'll be interrogating as to why it isn't, and how can it actually get there. We'll talk with him at 7 a.m. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll talk with Walter Okello, who is a governance and public policy expert. All right. We're going to be talking about Kenya's funding problem. That's what we will discuss today. Is there an issue? Is it predictable? Is it not? We'll be looking at that. And that's what we'll discuss this morning with Walter Okello, who is a governance and policy, public policy expert. Inez Forrest Fernandez is the ambassador of the Republic of Cuba to Kenya. She will be here with us at 9 a.m. with Benedict Washira, who is the secretary of the Kenya-Cuba Friendship Society. Sovereignty, law, and territorial integrity. Those are some conversations that we will have this morning with them at 9 o'clock. What Cuba and the rest of the world mean to each other, and also how we will tie that in with regional conversations that are taking place. So that is what it looks like in terms of what we'll be talking about today. It's a 17 hours to 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Where and what are the Angolans saying?
Angolans today are saying, the one who asks many questions never buys anything.
The man who does what?
The one who asks many questions never buys anything.
Exactly. It is true. Run this thing, I beg. As in, just get into it. If you've made a decision and you just go with it, go. And then maybe you want to ask questions later, but essentially go with it. If that's the decision that you've made, asking many questions, is it? How does it? You'll never make a decision. So I think in terms of how I think about it, in terms of decisiveness over something, decisiveness has to be the way that we go.
It pretty much speaks to those who want to do something but keep on procrastinating. You never really move. You'll remain mark timing at the same spot saying, tafanya kesho. How about you just choose to do it?
Just do it. That's, I guess, why, Nike is so popular.
Yep. Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. You might not get it right, but it's the step. You'll make mistakes. You will correct yourself, but at least you're moving.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. We can see you guys all trickling into the room this morning. Karibuni sana, thank you for being here. Let's say a quick good morning to you wherever you're tuned in from. I love it that this week we had so many silent listeners who are coming into the position where you're not so silent anymore. So this is a good thing. Thank you for every morning opening up with us and saying good morning as we get engaged in these conversations. And so we say a good morning to you. Remember to tell us where it is in the world that you're tuning in from, and continue to join us in these conversations that we have. All right, so where are you this morning? And I already know that Don Sabo has a question, but we'll start with Tupac Shakur, who says Brenda's got a baby. Man, it was a Tupac song, I remember. So Tupac wasn't sure whether Brenda's, I don't know if you remember that song, but Tupac wasn't sure whether that baby was his, because definitely he knew Brenda. And when I say he knew Brenda, he knew Brenda. So Tupac, good morning. Brenda indeed got a baby, but I don't know if it's mine. A very good morning to you. Also, Michael Olande tuned in from Kigali. Robert Tabogo is tuned in from Mombasa. And a very good morning to you. Karibu Sana. Kiaria Peter says, good morning. Forgive people in your life, even those who are not sorry for their actions. Holding on to anger only hurts you and not them.
Yeah, holding on to anger is tiresome.
It is. I mean, it's just exhausting. Okay, sour. Sorry, but. And I guess in the other direction, in the other way as well. See, if you've wronged someone, you just ask for forgiveness.
Just apologize.
Just apologize. People talking about apologize makes me weak. No. Makes me it makes you strong.
Yeah.
Not apologizing makes you weak.
Yep.
Makes you very weak. Don Sabo says, how are you? Ndu? I am fine. Aseto is also fine, as you can see. Kindly ask Aseto, do we still have the experts in government, or do they have a sell by date time? Aseto, it's TBT, or have they expired? Okay.
Okay. Experts in government. Wewe mnajua tu mmoja. The one who has over 20 advisors, but advisors to advise them.
Oh, there's only one advisor. Only one expert from where you see.
Yes, from where I see.
All right.
Yes.
It's not too bad. Okay. Joseph Okondo says, good morning, tuned in from Tudor in Mombasa. Already tuned in from Zimmerman, says Gideon Mukonambi. Good morning to you. Karibu Sana. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Here's a Daniel says, good morning, Spice. According to an African proverb, he says, a man with a wife cannot eat cold food. Okay.
My brother.
Which wife?
Okay. I can update that software.
I understand the thought behind
I
the
understand
proverb.
it. Yeah.
However, in 2026, have you seen the wives outside here? Sorry, did I say that out loud? From Preston, UK is where Rahimtullah Omar is tuning in this morning and says more rants from Trump at Davos. The US foreign policy is no longer pretending to be diplomatic. He ranted for like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So we know that the World Economic Forum is taking place in Davos in Switzerland, and it has an opportunity for folks to come out and talk. And boy, did DJT talk. He did. And your teeth are showing, just in case you're wondering, that the world is really understanding what you intend to do with America. Tuned in from Kilifi, Ganze sub-county is Abere Bethwell. Ndu, yes. Please alert the MP of Ganze constituency at Tungule that Maojo Primary School is learning under trees because the makeshift classes collapsed last December. What the hell?
Please remember, it's a makeshift structure to start with. That means there's no structure.
Yep. Counting backwards from 10.
Who again is that?
MP Ganze. MP Ganze constituency. Let's look for who that is, and let's have a word or two. We didn't say that you should go and carry board and nails and nail the thing together. No, we said that when you go and open sessions of parliament, you're having a pointed conversation about how the budgets that you're making, holding the Ministry of Education accountable, that you must have schools operational in your country. So please, when you go to parliament, this one that you must have that issue addressed.
MP is called Tungule Charo Kenneth Kazungu.
Yes, Bwana Kazungu. Iko kizungu mingi hapa bwana.
Kuna kizunguzungu kwa Ganze.
You have to deal with this
Please
one.
make sure that your children have structures that they can study vizuri.
It collapsed.
Taiko.
So now they're under trees.
Yes.
Trees, sir. Trees.
Ile basari, 100 million. You can do something with it.
Sir, trees. Please. Thank you for alerting us on that, Abere. And that's what we'll do. Tell us about what's actually going on. We'll talk about it. Eric Awuor says, good morning, guys. Good morning to you. House of Ngoge, I love the energy. Good morning, Team Spice. Sending good vibes from Cape Town. Oh, one of my favorite cities. I know. Cape Town, what you did to me. Hey, we'll keep the rest kosher. Jennifer Atenyi says, good morning, my favorite team and Spice family. Indo and Dennis, I pray for good health to you and yours. My sister. Amen.
Amen.
May God bless from your mouth to heaven's ears. Isaac Kale, I'm already laughing and I don't know what you said. Good morning, Ndu and Aseto, the usual suspects. The usual suspects are Awuor. Are you here? You are suspects. Methinks the government doesn't make the same mistake twice. It makes the same mistake 4 or 5 times just to be sure.
Yo. Yeah, to just confirm that you made a mistake, then confirm that you made a mistake a second time.
Yeah. Just to be sure. That was a mistake. Yeah. Let's do it again.
Can you revisit?
Let's do it again. Like we did last summer.
Just doing it in a loop, you know?
Hey, I'm telling you, it's on repeat.
Yeah.
Rahimtullah Omar says, Ndu, do you wear heels often? Often. Never. But let me tell you, it's on my plan. You see this MRI that I'm doing, sorting out my stuff, going back to the doctor, getting my procedure done. You wait. That's all I have to say.
Don't worry.
I don't know that I'll wear heels, but you know, just because. Mashari and Jerry says, good morning, tuned in, watching from Portland in Oregon, and Andrew Chira is here this morning. Good morning. You know, the situation as it is that Kenyan politicians, leaders won't make Kenyans progress. It's a strategy so that they can bribe their way to leadership. Kenyans, I'm Kenny. Ooh-wee. All right. Jose Mahinda says, good morning. Good evening. Okay, where are you first of all? Where are you that you're telling us good evening? Good morning to you. But of course, we understand that different parts of the world, so that is accepted.
South America is evening now. Yeah.
Yes. And North America as well is evening. It's afternoon on the other part of the world.
Yeah.
But voila, here we are. So it doesn't matter. This is the thing about where you are in the world. We're having these conversations anyway. He said it's January. Start checking your account balance.
Don't go there.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Tubong. Hello, Ndu and Aseto. Shout out to you guys from Dallas in Texas. Yay, good morning to you. You saying Arctic blast or not, we tune in. Kabisa, brother. Good morning, guys. It says Kembe Orlando, good morning to you. Patrick Nzomo says, I support bringing back the traffic updates. Also, bring a KRA tax expert to explain how consultants will get e-teams compliant receipts to account for expenses from Mamamboga, water vendor, KPLC and shops. That's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Something for us to look at to understand this a little bit more. All right. Okay. Noted. Space Stroll says, good morning, Ndu and Aseto. Good morning to you. Papa Ogutu says, good morning, Nakurians. We're still visiting Akinyi's Tule Kenyeji in solidarity with her. Oh, yeah. You see, let me tell you something about the spirit of Kenyans that I've actually quite come to appreciate over time. I love it. I think I'd come back into Kenya at a time where they were putting money together to send trucks to Northeastern with food. I can't remember.
It was Turkana. Kenyans for Kenya?
Yeah, something like that. And then just seeing people, the young man in Nyeri supporting him. And then this lady whose business was about to close. And she said, you know what? With my last strength, let me put it on social media and say, look, guys, I have food. I open this place every day. I cannot. Kenyans traveled to Nakuru to go and eat this woman's food. And said, it is good. You people must continue to patronize her. I mean, what better show of brotherliness is that?
You can imagine if the leadership there is would just take capital of who Kenyans are. Imagine where the country would be. Imagine.
Just
the capital of genuine, innocent people who just love each other. Get rid of negative ethnicity.
No tribalism, none of that crap. You know, people just want to live and be able to do that in harmony. Whatever you people are selling and putting in a bottle, Kenyans are not drinking it. I'm just telling you, they're not drinking it.
No.
Okello Sam is tuned in from Ongata Rongai and says, good morning, everybody. Izakale says, the proverb, especially those who ask, what time do you close? Because they're not coming. I'm telling you, Iningapi, send me pictures. They're not coming.
How much?
Oh, okay. Should I deliver?
No, you know, it's how much you tell the price, then silence.
It's over.
How
much you're asking yourself?
Yes.
Sheila Masasabi says, good morning. TSR family, Aseto is right. We only have one advisor. Indeed, seems to be the case. Robert Nyange says, tuned in from Bidikani in Voi. Christina, good morning to you, sister. Tuned in from Kilgoris is Ignatius Nyageta. And Mark Mwangi says, which government program project will successfully come to a feasible completion without corruption? Which one has been completed, though?
Yeah, which one has been completed?
That's another thing that we do. I know we're giving you guys so many things to do, but which government project has been completed? Finished, yani done. It's done. Apart from the expressway. I'm just asking. Galana Kulalu is finished in terms of the structure is up, but in terms of now harvesting and seeing the food actually in the market, I don't know.
All right. Well, let's just say we finished the renovation of our fields, whatever you want to call it, for Chan.
Onye? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
for
Nyayo
Chan,
and Kasarani.
Nyayo and Kasarani,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There must be something else. Guys, today is the day that we are going to put
let's look for
positivity. Because tell us the government projects that have been completed. Which ones are they? Let's look into them. It doesn't matter where it is you are in the country. Which projects have actually been completed? Please.
The one that was launched the other day.
Okay.
The affordable housing projects
for
at
Mukuru.
night. Yeah, Mukuru.
Okay, yeah, Mukuru, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but still, remember, the reason why I would say it is not complete, because at the end of the day, annually we're supposed to get 200,000 units.
Yeah, 250,000.
250,000 units. So if you're having 100 units, if you read that together with your promise, the project is not complete. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Amma?
Yeah.
Because the project is not just one building. It's supposed to be 250,000 units a year.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so now we should be talking about 700 and something, close to 1 million. So
you're right.
Alama za dukuduku.
Comma.
It comes as a package.
Tunatafuta. Tell us what else. What other projects have been completed?
I know one.
It is sad that we have to. What?
I actually know one. One project that has been completed. Kenyans have been paying taxes religiously.
Go far away.
That is a project completed. But how has it been spent? We've done our part.
You know what? This is
Yes.
actually quite sad that we cannot think of projects that have been completed. And I'm really actually trying to think of ones that are completed. It's running, it's done, money has been, everything sorted out. Oi! Okay, well, let's keep looking into it. Perhaps I still have brain fog and the coffee hasn't quite kicked in. So maybe there are. So please let us know what those are. What government projects have actually been completed? Let's even say in the last, apart from the expressway, you're not allowed to cheat and use the expressway. In the last 5 years, of course, that seeps into before the current administration's time. But then from 2020, okay, let's even go to 2020 and accept the expressway, 2020 to today. Completed projects that have been planned for. Which ones are those? Please tell us what those are. So let's see what we can do. So no, all right. So that's a good question, Mark Mwangi. Ian is saying, good morning. Mero is tuned in this morning. You said at 9 a.m. ask the guests what they think about the U.S. administration planning a regime change in Cuba and Latin America. This question we shall ask. This is great because DJT set it up for us nicely at Davos yesterday in order for us to ask some questions this morning. All right, through and through, Beja is tuned in from Paddington, London in the UK. And Wanasiasa Ndio Wakabila. Sindio, Duke, good morning. Yeah, the ones. Kenyans don't have a problem. No. And this, I'm speaking as somebody who's not Kenyan, but has been able to see. No. Kenyans don't. I'm telling you, Kenyans don't hate each other on tribe. That where you're from, I'm not going to support you. No, they don't.
There's a time I was traveling to Nanyuki and we had a flat tire in Nyeri. And when we were there, the people who came to assist us were Nyerians themselves. They didn't even ask.
Did they ask, where are you from?
Tribe, no.
No.
They just came, you have a problem, took the tire, repaired it, and brought it back for us. Never charged us. Never
I find that where people will have a challenge is over business or money.
Yeah.
And even that, it cuts across tribe.
True.
People don't have an issue with each other based on where they're from.
This tribalism thing is just...
It's manufactured.
It's manufactured, and we know by who. We just don't want to name them, but we know who. Yep.
Nah, man. Sorry, let's go through this. Masham Moshiri says, good morning. The conversations are great as usual. Thank you so much for being here as you are. James Kamau is tuning from Fone in Texas. And Talanta is completed. The stadiums, you know?
Not yet.
It's not finished. Sorry.
Not
Sorry,
yet.
Raimtula, it's not finished.
I live next to it. Not yet.
It's not yet. All right.
Yeah.
100 billion shillings to Shah is completed.
Yep.
104 billion. Okay, the money went. Talanta will not be worth the money, says Duke. Okay. Mtuflani. Mtuflani, good morning. He says the project of raiding my payslip, that one is completed. So it's not completed. Even that one is not completed because they're still coming, my brother. It's not completed because they're still coming. They're still coming for you.
It's coming for you. Yeah.
Good morning. When are we bringing Sifuna to tell us his stand? Don't worry, he'll come. Ephraim, good morning to you. Duke says, Ata SGR Ikonusu. Jamaliza. Oi. Talanta Stadium is not finished, gentlemen and ladies. State House renovation bust. Yes, that one is finished.
It's not ongoing.
See, now it's a flat roof. It's not finished.
That thing has been under construction forever.
Even the house where you live. Sure.
I don't think so.
Hope in the World says the project that has been completed is the renovation of State House. Okay. Tuned in from Butere and Kakamega, Spice any day, Lumumba, Kabisa. Good morning to everybody. We are still asking you, tell us the projects that have actually been completed. Come on, we have to be able to see them. And the good thing is that you guys have told us that you're tuned in from all over the country.
Is completed.
Dongokuru, it is true. Actually, because when you get in from the SGR into Mombasa, and let's say you're crossing over to Diani. Now in another county, obviously, you don't have to do that whole drama of driving into
Ferry,
Mombasa, crossing the ferry, and it's actually a 20-minute drive as opposed to 2 hours. So that one is completed. That is true.
Yes,
it's in fact very true. That and it's if you've used it, it is fantastic.
Yes,
20 minutes and you're in another county. It's beautiful.
You will find.
If you search, you'll find. Okay, that's one tick.
It's just difficult to find, but you will find. It shouldn't be difficult.
It shouldn't be. But tell us what else, because we're looking into it. Boniface Mwendo, good morning to you. Affordable housing projects. Some people are already doing repairs. What are you talking about? People are already doing repairs. You guys. Okay. Well, Well, okay, we continue to look into that, and we want you to keep talking to us this morning. Tell us about those projects that are actually completed. But yeah, thanks, Dennis. That Dongo Kundu one is one. It is true. It is true, and it works very well. You see what can happen when you actually put the, when you look, but when you actually do the work.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, and we can testify to the goodness. Okay, let's look into the headlines this morning, and we'll start off with Kenya's bold newspaper, and that is The Standard. The headline in The Standard today, presiding over rogues. There's a picture there of IG of Police Douglas Kanja. He's in the presence of DIG Police Administration Masengeli and Administration on the other side, Eliud Lagat. And the man who sits over all of them is the CS Kipchumba Onesimus Murkomen. Police violence in Kenya is no longer about rogue officers, it's systemic. Impunity runs deep. Leaders are puppets of the executive. Suspects in murders are openly contemptuous of the law, while junior officers unleash brutality on ordinary Kenyans. Lethal force, impunity and silence have become routine. Innocent civilians are shot, beaten or killed in custody. Investigations crawl and accountability is a distant promise. From Karatina to Mathare, Nandi Hills to Githurai, every death fuels fear and mistrust. I have one question. Who killed Albert Ojwang?
Yep.
May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. January is almost over. Who killed Albert Ojwang?
We're investigating.
You're still investigating something that happened within the police?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good question, because now let's get a little bit pissed off.
Yeah.
A man died in such a grotesque manner, and you don't know, or rather, you do know who killed him, but you don't want justice.
Yeah.
We'll ask those questions.
Simply because they called you out.
7 is a perfect number. It's a prime number as well. It happens to be the number of civilians who have been killed by police in January alone. 7. 104 deaths said to have been attributed to police through shooting of protesters in and or unarmed civilians. 60 is the number of youth who were killed during the anti-tax demonstrations. Police often appear in the dock, but few end up in jail. Abel Nabutola is a human rights lawyer, and this is his quote: "The problem starts from the top. The CS Interior was captured by the media saying he will defend any officer who shoots a Kenyan in a riot. The DCI, under the leadership of Mohamed Amin, has been implicated in many cases of kidnapping, brutality and death of Kenyans. These are officers who have seen their bosses get away with murder, literally, so they are emboldened and they know nothing will happen to them." It's a scary place to be in, and that is the reality. And the story that takes place after that is that deadly act when police take the law into their own hands. My God, can you imagine that the place that should provide you security and safety, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy because you don't know if you'll come out alive. Looking at other stories, why a man wants marriage papers rules invalidated. A lawyer has sued the Attorney General and the Registrar of Marriages over the mandatory requirement for couples in customary marriages to register them. Do you know why? Because the proceeds of that marriage, whether it be property or children, in the event that you die, how are you going to, who will now prove that they're yours or they're not? Anybody can jump out of the woodwork and say, actually, this is my child, it is his. Come on, guys. Anyway, that's just my interpretation. We can look into the details of that because it's important. He's saying, oh, this Karatasi registration is not necessary. Ruto creates campaign network as opposition seeks new alliances. Okay. We'll be alliancing ourselves out of this thing. Senate team grills 8 governors. Well, it's about time. In a minute.
Hey, how about 47? Yeah, how about 47?
How about 47?
Yeah.
How Mbadi's duty-free rice import plan turned into a free-for-all legal war. Everybody's suing everybody. Boom, 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 boom. Because you did what? You brought it out. You imported rice.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, people here in Ahero and Kirinyaga, Sagana Uko are asking themselves, asking themselves, excuse me, what are you doing?
Yeah. That's when Kabilame would ask.
I love it. Aseto, you're not normal. 930 learners join senior schools. over 930 students have reported to senior school closing school following closure of the reporting deadline on Wednesday, the Ministry of Education has said. I like that the last sentence there is that the Ministry of Education has said. 930 have reported to school. German minister has said job offer open to qualified and skilled Kenyans. Bang, bang, bang. There is work. Ikokazi. The German minister has said it is there. He's a question and answer here, and we can go through some of those. So if you're looking for work, you can find it in Germany.
Yep.
There's in the opinion pages today what we as journalists call the op-ed. Singapore is far off. Stick with the hustler narrative for now. Oga, that one has gone. We are not on hustler. We are back. Oh, but you're saying stick with the hustler narrative. That's what is important. All right. It's about the looks of it for the Standard.
Singapore, Mbali. Okay. Daily Nation. Why US is probing this man? So we're talking about a business tried to wrest the Jubilant presidency from Adobe in 2024. So it is a University of Nairobi alumnus who was born in Somalia, grew up in Kenya's Dadaab refugee camp, and later obtained United States citizenship. It's facing a U.S. House of Representatives probe over alleged fraud. Now, Dr. Abdullahi Ali is the founder of Gateway Community Services, a healthcare firm based in the U.S. state of Maine that was last month suspended from receiving government funding pending investigations. So here's links to Kenya. Okay. Great to see you, President, with his predecessor's brother at State House. President William Ruto shares a light moment with the chair of the African region and trustee of the Duke of Edinburgh International Award Foundation, Muhoho Kenyatta, during the Gold Award presentation at State House, Nairobi yesterday. President Ruto said the government is proud of the 1,252 young people awarded the Gold Prize. Watch out. The casual WhatsApp that could cost you a lot of money. The casual. What is this about? The High Court has ruled digital text messages can create enforceable contracts once core legal elements are proven. The court upheld an award noting messages exchanged on phones capture a valid agreement. I do. So, Ndu, I want you to consult with me. We agree on prices and we exchange contacts and agree that contract itafanyika siku fulani. I come do the work, then unabadilisha because we never signed a contract.
Oh, okay.
You get what I mean?
Right.
So now the court has said if you exchange everything and agreed and you present that in court, that amounts to legal.
It's contractual, so you must either pay me or, pay damages. All right.
State House killing new twist to case now. On the morning of October 14th last year, an assailant killed a GSU officer outside State House. Kithuka Musiemi was promptly arrested, but he is yet to answer to the murder charges 3 months later. Prison officials accused KNH of ignoring calls to submit a crucial medical report. You remember that case where an officer was stabbed to death?
Yeah.
Yes. Paka leo medical report haijawahi patikana.
Sindio? Hakuna ink kwa pen.
Hakuna ink kwa pen.
Okay.
Ama hatuna reagents.
Right.
Yeah. Fresh queries on customary marriage law. A lawyer has challenged sections of the Marriage Act, arguing the requirement of registration of customary marriages to ensure validity is unconstitutional. The petitioner wants the court to declare the marriages constitutional upon performance of the applicable customary rights. Mambo ni pesa bana. Hiyo pesa yenye iko hapo ndio watu wanapigania. So that the story of that gentleman who's being investigated in the US is there on pages 2 and 3. Also, the story Ruto meets with UDA leaders as re-election campaigns shape up. So we're preparing for 2027. We have a lot of projects undone. One would hope that the meetings will be to discuss how we are finishing these projects and moving the country forward, because the Singapore dream haitafika hapo tukianza campaigns mapema. Detectives probe personal ties in Karatina businessman's shooting. So the victim was shot after a dispute with a local mechanic escalated. Police intervention followed, his family says. So yes. So that and many other stories on the Daily Nation. Do you have the story?
Yes, I do. El Nino is coming back.
Oh.
Global forecasts indicate tutakuwa na mvua. Global forecasts have indicated that El Nino is coming back. So what this means is that with the normal rain patterns, then you will have a deluge of rain, and that you have high winds. Of course, El Nino in Spanish is the boy. And so we don't know what the boy is going to bring this time, and we don't know what part of the world it's going to hit hardest. But of course, you can get that. So it's coming back. But you already know, extreme weather patterns follow each other.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. What are you doing
why don't we have
about
that conversation? We can get people who've already given out that information. They just tell us if they gave out information on what you're experiencing right now on drought, what government did with that info. And if already they have information on La Nina and which parts of the country will
This
be
one
hit
is El
the
Nino.
most. Yeah, El Nino, yeah. Let's see if they already have that information and which parts of the country will be hit the most and follow that up. Let's do
That's
that
a good
next week.
idea.
Let's do that next week.
Sawa sawa. Widowers bid to get wife's TSC cash fails. Oh no, why? The Employment and Labour Relations Court in Kisii has brought to a close a decade-old bid for posthumous pension benefit, extinguishing a claim filed on behalf of a teacher who died in 1997. Who was born? The case pitted the Teachers Service Commission against Mark Onyonka, who sued as the legal representative of his deceased wife. Onyonka sought payment of a negotiated remuneration package between the TSC and the Kenya National Union of Teachers. He argued that although his wife died later that year while in service, she was entitled to the enhanced benefits, which were never paid. And they now said even now they're not going to pay. Wow, okay. That's tough. Again, this story of WhatsApp and SMS are verbal contracts and are binding according to the court. Of course, we do know that one of us in the industry is coming against a big boy in the market on something like this. Yeah. And saying, you agreed that this is what we're going to do. Sure, you didn't have it down on paper, but the court says, you know what? That digital form of communication now, just like you're saying, is a contract.
It's a contract.
Pay up.
Pay up.
DP Kindiki, job at stake as UDA meets over ODM talks. Really? Yeah, see fire? ODM says, fire, see fire. Shh. They can hear you. It's okay. Sorry, they can hear you. ODM says it won't settle for anything short of deputy president slot. So it seems that if that's the case, and they actually want to do broad-based inside 2027, that they're going to have to give up the seat. Unless, of course, Professor Abraham Kindiki then joins ODM. And now if ODM insists that they want the deputy president, that's the only way he would return the seat. Can you see the math?
She's a town.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
That would be an amazing move, man.
ODM says they want nothing less than if we are joining you together.
Number 2.
So unless Kindiki will join ODM now and then now bid to be the running mate, I can understand why his job is at risk.
Okay.
There's an interesting picture here of President William Ruto and Mohoho Kenyatta. He looks very much like his father. He's chairperson of the African Region and trustees of the Duke of Edinburgh International Award Foundation during the Gold Award presentation at State House, the one that you had alluded to earlier as well. Looks very much like his father. My goodness. Small investors get higher price in 110 billion shilling NCBA buyout. We're looking at Nedbank, of course, which is a Southern African bank group, is coming into this group. Why billionaire Muthoka sold logistics firms for 5.2 billion shillings. The logistics firms that we're talking about. He sold his airport services firm Transglobal Cargo Center to Istanbul-based Celebi Aviation for 5.17 billion shillings, marking one of the largest transactions in Kenya's logistic market. He said, I'm not doing it again. You will have money. Oh yeah, bring, take, carry, go. He's not doing it again. Okay.
People are moving crazy amounts out here.
Where? You think it's here with
5 billion?
5 billion shillings. Yani, mtu amenunua kitu, amekupatia
5 billion.
It's great stuff. I mean, he's worked, he's built it over the years. So, I mean, he can do whatever he wants with it. That's true. Okay. Now, let's look at this marriage story because it is confusing so many people. Coming up from the courts, this is Justice Thursday after all. Why man, not men, one man, wants marriage papers rule invalidated. A lawyer has sued the Attorney General and the Registrar of Marriages over the mandatory requirement for couples in customary marriages to register them. In his case filed before High Court Judge Chacha Mwita, lawyer Rogers Murder argued that Section 42, 44, 45, 55 and 96 of the Marriage Act 2014 and the Customary Marriage Rules 2017 unfairly create a loophole to delegitimize marriages despite persons who are in such mutually agree to be bound by them, commas. Okay. The petitioner respectfully submits that while Parliament may regulate the procedural and evidentiary aspects of marriage, it cannot, consistent with the Constitution, prescribe administrative formalities that effectively nullify customary marriages and strip families of their constitutional projection. Had he said it in English, he would have said that the ripple effect is that marriages or spouses are not eligible to get matrimonial wealth after parting ways, which in case of death, the widow and the children are likely not to be recognized as beneficiaries of the deceased wealth. The lawyer said customary marriages form the foundation of family life for millions of Kenyans, particularly in rural areas where access to registration facilities is limited or non-existent. So they're saying that in the rural area, once you've talked to the elders, they've gathered, they've sat, they've cracked cola and drank palm wine. Okay. You understand what I'm saying?
They've drunk uji in Kenya.
Okay.
We decide what uji is.
All right. Once they've done that it should be recognized. How do you want the person who is in the middle of, I don't know where, to come out? Where are they going to get a marriage certificate? Them, it has been recognized for yonks that's how they do it. In fact, by the time the elders sit, some of them pour libations, others have the seal of the family. And so many things are done. Certain cloth, I know in Nigeria, certain cloth is given over. It is done. It is sealed. So now when you're saying that a piece of paper for registration is what legitimizes this union, you lock certain people out and it is unfair.
True.
That's what they're saying.
You know, there is the law. Then there is how the law makes sense read together with people's cultures and tradition. Because remember, even the Constitution itself recognizes people's cultures and traditions. So then one would ask the question, how do we marry the same for it to make sense in a modern world?
Yeah.
Because whether they like it or not, today the weather forecast will be released, but there are people in this part of the country who have to take an animal, open up, read the guards, and the people in that community will trust those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how then do we marry both for it to make sense? Perhaps that's what we need to look at.
Yeah, I think there are many things traditionally and culturally that made sense. I do agree that there's some traditions that need to be tossed out the window.
True.
But I think there's fundamentals that when you look at then, native law and custom, that it needs to take into consideration that native law and custom, even as you deliberate over these things with what you want to call modern law.
Yeah.
I think that there can be, like you say, it can be a good marriage between the two. It'll be interesting to see how these things
see how it goes.
That's for sure.
Because if these people have been together for 30, 40 years and a partner passes on, then how do you say that is illegitimate if they have kids and grandchildren? Will a piece of paper, as said, then legitimize what has existed for over 40 years?
Well, according to the courts, the only thing that legitimizes this is the piece of paper.
But what about people and the community there?
Yeah, that's the thing.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, people there will tell you, but these people have been married for all this time.
Everybody knew them, we know their children.
Yeah, we know their children. So we'll do based off what we know as a community, and we'll do it based off the culture and traditions that we do have. So it's a question of the law and the cultures working together, which I think can happen.
Sure thing.
Sasa, there is a deadly act.
No.
Yes, didn't. When police take the law into their hands, they are everywhere on patrol, armed and sworn to protect Kenyans. Yet it is the very hands meant to guard citizens that Kenyans are losing their lives. Ironically, their motto and ethos is service to all. Innocent Kenyans are shot in the middle of their ordinary lives. Others are harassed and brutalized. And those lucky enough to survive arrest are dragged into police cells where danger still looms, because even in police custody, death still finds them. The streets are not safe, police hands not safe, and it's no longer about isolated incidents or rogue officers. Police brutality has now grown into a pattern. Every sunrise comes with fear that somewhere a trigger-happy cop will pull the gun, another innocent person will fall, and another family will be plunged into grief. Kenyans are now forced to ask, who will save and protect them? Police? Probably not. Now, and Kenyans are tired from sleepy villages to bustling cities. Police brutality and extrajudicial killings remain a grim and persistent crisis in Kenya, eroding public trust and leaving trails of grief and unanswered questions. I ask the question, in whose hands are we safe? In whose hands are we safe?
I like the way he looks up to heaven. Yeah, because, wow. Actually, no, it's not funny.
It is not.
I was watching, so this series that I'm watching now, and it's very clear, and I know that a lot of the productions are made for TV to actually condition your mind. But it was just interesting to me that the police, in this particular series, the police are a haven where people go to and say, you know, 1, 2, 3 is going wrong. Mm-hmm. And to look at the way in which these police officers on a regular basis will handle people. And I say, hey, God, when? When? And then when you look back here, in some instances, I've seen a police officer helping children to cross the road. I've seen a police officer helping people to push a vehicle. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, that's great. I mean, it's humanity. But then when you read stories like this and you're like, what? If for, you know, right now, anybody who's, and this is not just out of the blue, anybody who's arrested today, they don't fear, people are not afraid of the charge or anything. People are more afraid of if they have to sleep there.
Yeah.
You don't know.
You're not
wake
sure
up
that
the next day. And that's a terrible place to be in.
And you see, yet the safest place for any criminal to be is a police cell. Because there you are protected, you'll go through the processes, the justice system.
Or you would assume.
And so you'd assume. Yet here, you walk in, you're not guaranteed you will walk out. Paint the picture. So today, if you get into a brawl with somebody, right? Who do you call?
Ghostbusters. Okay, sorry. I don't know. Sorry, but the first thing is not the first. It's not the police.
You don't think of calling the police.
The
perhaps
first response is not the police. Somebody you know, your cousin, brother, sister, uncle.
Yes.
It's that person that you think, okay, so who's going to sort me out? My guy. That's who you think about. Sadly.
What does that say in terms of Kenyans' trust?
It's a huge indictment. Of course, it's a huge indictment on the security agencies, police being one of them. Because if you will not foster an attitude of confidence in yourself, I mean, it's another. I mean, gosh, there's so many poll questions to do this morning. Do you feel? I mean, and I think that the police service in Kenya is actually, in terms of the ability to do their job exceedingly well, stellar. But then now the picture, and optics count for so much. The picture that is painted that actually you're not a safe place, where people don't want to run to you for help. That if anything, they are afraid that if they do run to you, they may not leave alive. Yeah. That's some serious stuff.
You know, when you're outside this country and you see someone has been stopped by a police because of overspeeding, there is a radar to show you that you're overspeeding. In Kenya, you'll be told you are overspeeding, yet the police does not even understand what is the speed limit in the area of jurisdiction that you've been arrested. You're told 50, but you just left an 80 zone. That's where we operate from.
I mean, there's a lot.
It's sad, man.
It's a lot. And to have to be able to wrap your head around that picture, that it's not the safe place that is seen that should be. A lot needs to be done and seen how to be handled. All right, we're coming into it at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Wire. I'm Leah. Ubaga. National Assembly Minority Leader Jeanette Mohammed has claimed that powerful people in the country did not want to see the late Raila Odinga elected president in the 2022 general elections. In a statement defending himself against allegations of being a traitor within ODM, Jeanette said that this situation was what contributed to Raila's defeat in 5 presidential elections. Interviewed by a local TV station, Jeanette said Raila's defeat was deliberately orchestrated by powerful people who usually decide the outcome of elections.
Yeah, you see, settling political scores. People who are unhappy from the while ago, my relationship and my closeness with Baba. Now that he's not there, they have an opportunity now to say anything they want to say. So we give it to them. Yeah, I even saw this conman called Malala yesterday, sorry to say that, who was saying that I used to meet the president before the elections and gave him the agents and such kind of nonsense. Somebody just asked him a question. If we sold the agents to him, why didn't he win his election in Kakamega as a governor?
However, Jeanette has blamed Kenyans for making the election an unfairly competitive one, despite Raila's significant contribution to the nation. Jeanette, who is being accused by some ODM members of embezzling funds to pay agents, said that those who failed Raila in 2022 are the ones who know how the funds were spent.
This issue of, mall started after this broad-based government, this new relationship. Yeah, people don't want those relationships. So anybody who's opposed to that relationship will tell you that, these are UDA sympathizers, they want to sell the party to UDA, all kind of nonsense. So we have no apologies to pay. In politics, you can say anything you want. And they told us there was an office here somewhere in Westlands. Leave this thing to us. Leave this thing to us. We've done it in 2017. We've done it in 2013. Leave it to us. We left it to them as we went to abuse people on the field.
And Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen says the government has engaged various departments to ensure that students who sought for KEDSEA join grade 10. Speaking in Kisumu, Murkomen said that so far more than 70% of them have successfully been admitted.
This is a matter that is we are handling from a whole government approach perspective. Our responsibility from an administration perspective is to support the Ministry of Education by ensuring that we reach out to all the children who are due to transit to grade 10 and yet they are still at home. Some of the reasons given include school fees and many other challenges. And there is, and then some students may not have gotten placement in some of the schools.
Murkomen has also directed administrative officers to assist students facing challenges such as a lack of school fees,
especially by Constituency Development Fund, where if a child has gone to a day school, it is easy to achieve their school fees is barely 10,000 for a whole year. There should be no reason why, with the many bursaries and the resources we have in the community, there is no reason, even if a child did not get the school of their choice, perhaps a more expensive school, they should be able to still transit to grade 10 in the neighboring school.
And finally, President William Ruto met Uhuru Kenyatta's brother Muhoho on Wednesday at State House. Muhoho was among the guests present during the Presidential Gold Awards presentation event, which Ruto presided over. He attended the event in his capacity as a representative of the International Council of the Duke of Edinburgh Award. In his remarks, Ruto posed to acknowledge Muhoho's presence during attention from the other guests. The brief recognition sparked interest among observers given the complicated political history between the president and former First family. A total of 1,252 awardees who have demonstrated sustained resilience, commitment and leadership qualifying for the Gold Prize were awarded. That's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
We look at the utterances of leaders who are aligned to broad-based, who are were initially in ODM. We thought they stand for something. Now they've been exposed.
Because we are a third world country, we are poor. And not because we don't have resources, but we have been robbed senseless.
Look at the wasteful expenditure. Look at how large government lives. And we've said this is something that can be controlled. It happens in many other countries.
Internally, we used to stand and tell him, boss, hii kitu ni mbaya. And you'd say, now he doesn't let me tell you, you saw the other parliamentary group meeting. People went there, sat, listened, looked at him. There was no plenary, left.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
He himself actually has admitted that he bribed members of parliament, so...
he admitted that he bribed members of parliament?
Well, when he said...
The government.
Yeah, when he said that he gave the 10 million was for what?
We're always quick to point faults in somebody else before you look at your own faults as a person.
If it was Kanu's day, hii amuka naye leo ungekuwa umeenda bali sana hii. So and we must celebrate you.
There are 600 million people now globally estimated to be living with diabetes in the world. So it is a major health problem. It's the largest single disease rising pandemic that we're dealing with right now.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
7 minutes after 7 o'clock, and a very good morning to you as we get into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation on this Thursday. I know it's 22nd of January already, and we're getting into it this morning. It's Justice Thursday, and some of our conversations to go in that legal direction. It's interesting because the last couple of days we've been doing that, and the legal aspect of many of these things then come into play. We're going to look into whether you, because that's it, you are front or top of mind when it comes to the proclamations that leaders make, or when they're having those meetings hold up in establishments. Is it you that they're thinking about? When they're making and cutting policy, is it you that they're thinking about? And to help us have that conversation this morning, we are joined by Advocate Dr. Kanchori Daniel, who is here with us to talk about Kenya's politics, whether they are citizen-centered. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How are things?
Nasema Kiswahili mambo mseto. Things are good. Not bad. The year has just started well. It's back to school crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess as we have this conversation, we'll get to understand how you truly feel.
Things are, yeah.
Okay.
Things are, yeah.
Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
A touchy subject we're talking about today. But before we get into it, as you know, Dennis goes around the African continent every week. We stop in a different country. He comes back with their proverbs for you to interpret.
Africa's 7th largest country, Angola. Capital, Rwanda. A rich country with minerals. We talk about oil, petroleum product, gold, diamond. And these are things that continue to propel the country towards economic freedom. One would only hope that with all these resources, perhaps value add and sell it at the best profit margins that you can get. But sadly, during the civil war in the country today, as we speak, in some areas in Angola, we still have live landmines that continue to take out the citizens of the country. It is a constant struggle to clear up the lands to ensure that it's safe for the citizenry. But let's go to the proverb. The one who asks many questions never buys anything. Pretty sure you're a businessman. The one who asks many questions never buys anything. What do you think the Angolans are telling us this morning?
An interesting one. You know, I have been a victim of such. Sometimes when you go to a shop and you want to pass by time, or you don't have enough money. Person who is already prepared is focus. When you are prepared and you know what you want, you go straight to the point.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you don't even negotiate. But if you are not serious, you passing time, or you window shopping. Window shopping, let me say.
Yeah.
You often ask for many questions, and you can tell a serious customer because he will be asking for this product, the other one another product, but a person who is serious will be focused. So the gist of that is about being having a purpose. If you have a purpose, you are straight. You don't go around the bush. You move from less of promises to more of a purpose. Yeah,
knowing your purpose and going for it, pretty much. Yeah,
absolutely. And then just making a decision and running with it. And I guess even if we look at it, it seems that is a problem for a lot. We have already started to see that politicians are our top vehicles. They're filling churches. There are meetings back and forth. There are only very few that are around issues that affect people directly. And we asking, is it around the people or is it for the people? The politics that we see today, whereby democracy as a system of governance is founded on the very fundamental idea that the people will rule, whether it is through relegated responsibility, donated sovereignty, whatever that will be, it is the people's rule. That's the fundamental idea around democracy. So when we see the things that we see, when people are politicking, is the thought that people are the center of all of this?
Thank you very much. You know, our politics have been commercialized. Politics is like just Mama Mboga having a kiosk there. Our political parties are for business. And you've now seen that we have so many briefcase political parties going towards the next election. They are not, most of them are not based on policies or ideologies. It's about individuals, patronage. And you've seen that in our Kenyan politics or even society, the currency that is running this country is a currency called politics. When politics increase or decrease, like the dollar, you remember there was a time that we were literally monitoring the ups and downs of a dollar. Yep. So in Kenyan society, the currency that is running this country is politics. Secondly, when you read our constitution, Article 1, you will see that they say that the supreme power belongs to the people. And to answer your question, that should be the guiding principle, that is people first. And you can see that the politics and the governments that are formed, they rule on behalf of the people. It's a delegated power that is given by the people. And sadly, there are three components that I want to expound. One, when we don't respect the rule of law, where everybody is equal before the law, that actually disadvantages the citizens, because it means then we have in Swahili the shamba la wanyama, that some citizens are more than others. And then that brings a challenge, because when there is a rule of law, doesn't matter. For example, we've heard of this narrative of going to Singapore. I had the privilege of going to Singapore and witness a minister being punished for an irregularity, and he was actually kuokota takataka in the street and clearing the bushes there. And he is a minister. because the law is very clear. If you misbehave in this way, then the penalty is very clear. It doesn't matter who you are. So if we don't respect the rule of law, then the citizens will suffer, because how many of Mama Mboga knows somebody? You have to know somebody for you to make your way, or for you to circumvent a certain law. So that's a very big challenge.
See, okay. When you just read at the preamble of the Constitution, it starts with "we the people" and goes further to describe the kind of governance that Kenyans have bestowed upon themselves through the Constitution, right? And into that Constitution, then you get into chapters that speak about public participation and how integral it is on a day-to-day basis, which speaks of the involvement of Kenyans in each and every single decision that is being made, so that we travel together. But in the country we see today, public participation seems to be a suggestion. We asked the question yesterday here in terms of, when you bring forth a bill, what is the threshold that one would sit and say, finally we see a representation of the people of Kenya? Is it 15 people in a room speaking on behalf of 55 million Kenyans? Is it 100,000 people? How do members of parliament ensure that public participation has taken place, because they are representation of the people, but we see they never go back to their constituencies to speak to the people? Why is it so easy to look at the Constitution and look at the laws and look the other way, as if it doesn't matter?
Politics and patronage. You see, the Constitution is very clear, and I like the way you've expound it. When you read Article 118 of the Constitution, it's about public participation. Literally, the President and Parliament and all other government agencies have no mandate whatsoever without the consent of the Mwananchi. But you see, like our Parliament, last year when we had the Gen Z movement, it was basically for lack of adherence to the Constitution. Very clear. Just listen to the people, ask their opinion, and because whatever you are doing, whatever roles that you or bills that you want to pass, you are doing it on behalf of the Mwananchi. And whenever the Mwananchi is removed from the center, and it's now about my political party, it's now about, you had the president saying that there was some money that was taken to the Senate. You hear our member of parliament being given money so that they can pass certain bills. Not that they have listened to the Mwananchi. We have seen now the kind of business that is going, selling government institutions. Who have they asked? What have Wanjiku said about it? What is their opinion? You see, that should be paramount in all those activities. But it's just about the economy. I don't know who they have asked. What have the Mwananchi said? And if they do public participation, it's just a cosmetic exercise where they call a few people, they are given handouts, and they go to parliament and say that this has been done. We are dealing with we're just talking about the next election rather than the next generation. So the Mwananchi and the citizen literally are left outside there. It's like a hand. I remember, a Maasai from Kajiado, and we used to train our dog to hunt. You go to the bush, and when you hunt maybe a wild beast, you slaughter it, you come back home, the dog is protecting you, it has not eaten anything. You call the community, some buggers who had not participated in the hunting, you cook the meal, you enjoy, and the dear dog, the poor dog is waiting there to be given the bones and the small soup later. And this dog does not know that it can actually go and hunt on its own without this hunter. I think that's the scenario where we've left our citizens. They have the power, they can transform so many things, but sadly that is the situation.
Are Kenya's politicians afraid? And this is not to say that all of them. When we speak generally. We're not specific to everybody. But by and large, are Kenya's politicians afraid that if Kenyans actually knew to the end of the spectrum what could actually happen if they activate the power that they actually have? Are politicians afraid of that reality?
My sister, you remember the Gen Z movement? The Kenyan politicians are afraid, extremely, especially to uninformed citizens. You saw the young people when they were advocating for accountability, transparency, and good leadership. The whole of the government was scared to the last, and you could see that at some point the president had to give very tough and good promises then to try to calm that situation. And you know, when the government is afraid, the politicians are afraid, they turn into surveillance. You've seen that the social media now are being targeted. We've seen laws that try to monitor on Kenyans. So, yeah, the politicians are afraid, and you can see the steps that they are taking. You've seen draconian laws to try to hinder the freedom, maybe of even the media, of speech, and even association, hitting into the critics. And you know, when there is a fear, an afraid politician or regime will turn into surveillance. And secondly, it will. You've seen the kind of police brutality where police are used now to target protesters, peaceful protesters. That is a sign of fear. So it's a demonstration of that fear. So yeah, they are afraid
of what?
They are afraid of uninformed citizenship, because when the citizens are informed, they will be exposed. And you know, an informed citizen is that you can't lie to them, you can't keep giving them promises. They will ask for accountability. We've seen nations where people have demonstrated and a president has actually resigned or left the country. So the biggest fear of a politician is to lose an election and to lose popularity. So that's the biggest fear, to lose touch with the people.
But you see, even with the fear that they exhibit, unfortunately, reality is we deal with a different generation of citizens. We deal with citizens who went to school, who understand the law, who can interpret the law, who have friends who can help them understand the law. Pretty much from the Gen Z demonstrations that we saw in the country, it is a different crop of citizenry that we are dealing with. So whether they are afraid or not, I mean, the message is already home. But you talk about what the citizenry want, right? What do Kenyans want? That the political class just do their job. If you're an MP, go represent, legislate, oversight. Simple. We talk about even the Gen Z when went to the street. It was about accountability, ending corruption, and good governance is all that citizens are calling for. Is it rocket science, or is it too difficult for the political class to just deliver, just do their job? Or is it a question of we will make it so tough for Mwananchi to move any step, any inch forward? We will reduce them to politics of tokenism so that Mwananchi is forever a beggar.
My brother, you know, Kenyans and the Mwananchi, they need very basic things. They just need a working government system, so that when I want to go to a hospital, I just go there and I'm treated. If I go to a government office, I need a passport. I don't need to know anybody. They just want, we just need a working, and I want to speak because I'm also a citizen, we just need a working government system, whereby it's not about who is in that office. It's not about my tribe. It's not about which region I come. For example, look at the back to school scenario. You ask me how is the new year, and on my way here I had a conversation with a teacher who is from a national school, and the crisis back to school is a nightmare in the 21st century. How do we militarize a back to school? When you see a Minister for Interior and National Coordination telling the chiefs to go and mop up the students, there's no parent of a right mind who will just keep their child at home There must be a reason. We need to know, why are these kids not in school? Because one, you hear about this placement. In our time, it was done manually, and when it's a day school, you will just go to a school closer there. Now we have a technology, and my computer teacher used to tell me, garbage in, garbage out. So we cannot blame a computer for sending a student from Kajiado to go to a day school in Turkana. There is some basic what you call georeferencing in a survey. Some basic things just needs to be seen. When we don't have books, publishers have not published books. It's now 2 to 3 weeks after the opening of the school. Those are very basic things, and the government sets the opening dates, is the one that pays for these books. So that's a very big challenge. So Kenyans need very basic things. The government just to put the system in place, and Kenyans are hardworking. They don't need to be given handouts. They can work for themselves.
Actually, do you reckon that if these basic things, if the leadership of the country would just put the citizen at the center, put the citizen as a partner, as a key stakeholder in achieving this, that Kenya would be a different place? We would be even beyond Singapore, perhaps?
We have a constitution, and it's very clear, and it has assigned everybody their role, from the president to the citizen. It's not something that the government should, if they do.
It's not a favor.
It's not a favor. It is a right that the Kenyan enjoy. For example, health, education, housing, proper transparency, accountability, so that the people who are given that task, when you look for a job and you are earning a salary, there is what we call the work that you are supposed to do, that you report at this time, and there are deliverables. Every government agency has people, and these are Kenyans. They are not foreigners. They are not other superhuman beings. If we follow our constitution, for example, the issue of corruption, how many cases have been investigated and prosecuted so far? We saw the Minister for Health withholding money for SHA in certain institutions, hospitals. And now it's a crisis that you go to a hospital, you don't get drugs. But he's saying, if you don't give the people drugs, we are not going to pay you money. They have now withheld the money for those hospitals. And you saw the private and urban hospital organization complaining. A Kenyan does not know those stories. A Kenyan, I am sick, I've gone to a public institution, I need to be treated. The government is supposed to sort their mess. And if there are people who are not doing their work, there are so many qualified Kenyans who can take that job. Look at the police. I read the newspaper today that just in this January, 7 Kenyans. These are not just statistics. These are human beings. This is a brother. This is a father. This is a mother. It's somebody like me and you who have been killed by police. And police are supposed to be protectors. They're supposed to ensure the first defenders of the rule of law. And if we have those news, those are the news that we are reading, they are demoralizing. And it now puts Kenyans' life into danger. And when a Kenya is not is demoralized, is also a challenge. And I think it's high time that we just know that Kenya is not a banana republic. Our constitution, there is a spirit and letter to the constitution, and we are supposed to adhere to it, and that will benefit all of us. Very basic.
I think we're discussing in an ideal situation where we know what it's supposed to be. And that's why idealism as an ideology resonates in the hearts and minds of people who are policy planners. They say, this is the way it ought to be, and in order to get there, this is what we must do. And then we also have realists who say, you know what, this is where we are, and as a result of us being where we are, we then make decisions. We're not planning for it. With what we have right now, this is what we must do. We talk about the basic things like education and health and the run-of-the-mill things that we talk about and complain every day. But in my opinion, business, or rather government of the day, really has no business dealing with grand mega infrastructure if your people who are supposed to use these roads cannot eat, if they're sick, if they've not gone to school. Where I do agree that you should still have relations with external parties and figure out where your place as a nation is on the global map, that there are basic fundamentals that must be done for the people. If those things are not being addressed, should you be involved in these mega? I mean, we talked about the Dongo Kundu Road today that was finished, and that has saved people. I mean, and that's a fantastic example. It has saved people hours going from Mombasa, crossing over to Kwale, and going into Diani, for example, or coming back. That you get off the train, for example, and in 15 minutes, you are on the other side, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So there you can see a direct example of how things like that has helped. I'm going to finish the road. You finish the road. You can see that life has changed as a result of you finishing the road. But all this other business that we spend our time talking about, and then it's not done, it wastes time, it expends people's grace. And that's when we talk about that, should government, should administrations have any business in talking about these grand things if they're not going to do them? I think it's gotten to the point where people are exhausted.
I want to give an example of the president of America, Trump. I like the way he took a bold step to actually cut aid to several organizations in Africa. Because how do we rely on foreign aid to help our mothers to deliver in hospital? How do we rely on foreign aid to secure our country, to equip our military? Is a lack of priority. And I think to answer your question, it's time that we prioritize, we measure on the measures and minor on the minors. But unfortunately, we are measuring on the minors and minoring on the majors. Because, for example, the issue of corruption. You know, our issue is corruption. We get aid and we use that money to cut deals. Well, the little taxes that we are getting, that's supposed to help our people. Why are we still talking about issues to do with school? For example, there are no textbooks in our senior secondary schools as we speak. It's a fact. I was in a school in Kajiado last week, and as we speak, the publishers have not delivered the books to school. This is a new system of education. And you know, education is an equalizer. It's a very basic thing, but a major issue.
Because in the first week of January is only when they released 5.6 billion shillings to print
pay a
the
debt,
books.
to pay a debt of last year. It's not to cater for this one.
To print books. 5.6 billion shillings was released to print the books that you went to look for in Kajiado and you could not find. They are being printed as though we didn't know that January was going to come and that children were going to go to school. This is what I'm talking about. That what business do you have in talking to anybody about a grand thing where you're going to have super highways connecting cities to cities when your children don't have the books that they're going to go to school with in January? Do you see? As in, you could have released 5.6 billion. I mean, for golly's sake, 3 billion is being lost every day. You could have released 5 billion shillings to print these books last year because you knew these children were going to school. Do you see? That's what I'm wondering. What happens in the minds? Because I do believe that there are policymakers who do their job. They do their job. They crunch the numbers. They prepare the schedules. They are aware of the cycles. They know what to do. But there's if it's a spirit, I'm going to get spiritual. There's something that's hovering above that then stops that. Because make it make sense to me why. that children are going to school in January, and that is when you're releasing the money to print the books that they're going to use to learn in that month. I honestly, I'm not being facetious, I don't understand.
And it's not just to print the books, to pay the debt that is owed to these publishers so that they can now go to a next contract. Look at the SHA issue. The counties have not received their allocation for the last 2 months since December. So in January, we have now some counties that are going to almost 3-4 months. They are relying on bank loans. Yeah. We have a budget. We pass a budget, and there are timelines for this budget. When it starts and when it ends. So the challenge is the buck stops with the government and the president. We've seen the president since he was elected, sadly to say, he's been giving promises from bottom up. Now we are going to Singapore. And that's what I was saying. And from your proverb, we must move from promise to purpose. It's not just about, I'm going to do this. And government are run in perpetuity. You don't come and reinvent the wheel. There are ongoing projects. There are already systems. There are policies. There are laws to be followed. So my big challenge is that either we have incompetent people, or we have the wrong people in the right offices. And that's why I'm saying the focus of the citizen, when you lose focus of the citizen, then you no longer now have listen to reason. You don't listen to fact. It's like somebody who is afraid of something and he has already identified a target that this is my problem. And for the politician, their target is the next election. Their target is make money and make more money. So when you lose focus of the citizen, that's why now the sense you're talking about, you're saying there must be a certain spirit, because you're no longer going to absorb the fact, the truth. It will no longer make sense.
Tell you what, I finally cracked it.
Oh, here we go.
I understand why Monanchi is not the priority. Let's talk about education. Students get to school. Allocation of schools is a problem. A day school in Turkana, you live in Nairobi. How do you end up there? We are in the era of technology, like you say. Who slept on the job? You go to hospital, it is not working. Shine is down. Why? The leadership that you have in the country will not bother to look at the checks and balances to ensure they work, because they do not use these facilities and do. Why would they care about a public school if their children are going to international schools? They do not feel the pain, the pressure that is for a parent to have their child in school and not get the best, because they are going out of their way to ensure that their children get the best, and rightfully so. Every parent wants the best, including the members of parliament. But that is not translated to the person who has given them the opportunity to be in those offices. You wanted to go to hospital. A member of parliament today enjoys over 10 million shillings insurance that they can use in any hospital in this world that they want. But for Monanchi, who is being taxed to ensure that they get that insurance, goes to a public facility. They do not step there. Doctors will be on the streets every other day. These are not the very same doctors that attend to them and do.
I hear you. So I don't think it's a matter that they don't care, because in order for you to care for something, you must regard it. And I think that there's an absolute disregard for the positions in which many a Kenyan find themselves in today, because you cannot care for something that you're not even in touch with. That suffice to say that many people cannot come to grips with the realities that people are living. And for me, it's that classroom where there is 110 students and the teacher has to stand at the window to teach. For me, it's that woman that I saw yesterday in hospital who's got to beg for a space, essentially, and then bring her whole family who's contributed something to help her get a scan before they even treat her. For me, it's that person who's thinking, okay, so I've got to go to my daily grind where I'm going to earn maybe 500 shillings. I need to think about whether I will take 300 of those shillings to use on a very expensive transport system to go home, to go and come back home, or will I walk and so that I can feed my family. Those are the realities. If you want to imagine that where we may sit in a comfortable position is in the majority, it is not. The majority of people cannot afford a meal. The majority of people cannot afford the luxury of transport to or fro. The majority of people cannot afford to take their children to a place where there is space between one desk and the other. So I'm wondering who, when we're atop the vehicles and going to rallies, who are you really thinking about?
Nobody.
Who are you thinking about that you want to come and govern over, that you're asking, give me your vote so that I can change it? For who?
You see, for example, the new education system. Sadly, our JSS teachers are on contract. Do you know, the education is equalizer. Education is, we fought for independence so that we can take our children to school. Kufukuza ujinga.
Yes, so we can get rid of diseases.
And get rid of diseases. When we see our doctors on the streets because they are not paid well, our JSS teachers are on contract, that is lack of priority. And secondly, the economy. Basically, when you loot the government, when you loot the public resources, ultimately we will have few people with so much and the majority with little. And that's when now you will have a country of tokenism, a country of promises. When you elect me, I will do this and this. That is a big challenge. What we need is people to do the right thing.
Okay.
And accountability. The issue here is lack of accountability and transparency. And when the Mwanainji speak and say this is wrong, that is viewed as a threat, that is viewed as noise, that is viewed as you're making noise because you need something. So we just need to put our system and learn from the other countries. What has Singapore done that now we want to go to Singapore? We need to learn that one, they put their country first. You are not employed because of your tribe. You are not employed because of your political alignment, but because it should be that you're given a public job because of your competence and your ability and capability to deliver to the Kenyans. And whatever we do, the Mwananchi should always be first.
What's the responsibility of Mwananchi? Fine, one would say that does Mwananchi's role end at the ballot? Because at the end of the day, we elect individuals to get there to serve us, right? How then do we ensure that that mandate is upheld, that our contract with you is as we agreed? Because fine, we'll sit, we will lament, we will raise questions, we will call them out. But how do we ensure that we move? Because that's where rubber meets the road. We saw when Wananchi moved, they were killed on the streets. How do we keep on pushing?
Very critical question, because one, the Mwananchis should know that the president, the member of parliament, the governor is there courtesy of their vote. And the Mwananchi are actually ndio wadosi. These ones are just servants. Unfortunately, because of the illiteracy that is there, the economic challenges, Wananchi are struggling to put food on the table, so you have even no time to think what they said and all that. The Wananchi now needs to realize that the buck stops with them, and the constitution is very clear. And we have seen Kenyans going to court. We've seen presidential directives and bills being quashed in court, which is a good step towards the right direction. And we need to encourage the civil society. We need to encourage the Wananchi, even the Barasas. We've seen now the court saying that the public participation is not just meeting some people and signing some documents. That is a good step. We saw the Gen Zs going to the street and agitating and even storming parliament. We are better. We are moving in the right direction. They should not just think that their work is to vote and go back home. Their work is to vote, and not just to vote, but now to vote for the right kind of people. When you go and cast your vote, you are literally delegating your power, you are delegating your decision-making ability to an individual for the next 5 years. So they should not vote based on tribe. They should not vote based on political move. No. They should vote competent people. They should vote people who are able to understand their needs. And I think they have a big role. They have a big role to know that if you made a mistake the other time, it's time to correct. And that's why we have every 5 years, and they have a role. We have courts, we have Barasas, which they can express their dissatisfaction, and they can go to the street. That's why the Constitution allows all that. So they should not feel helpless that now I've already given my vote, I have to wait for 5 years. No.
So there was a rally a couple of days ago coming into Sunday, Monday, and where it was a member of parliament, and she finished her submission, whatever it is that she was saying, and she then said, wacha ibaki 2 terms sababu najua tunaenda Singapore. And I thought to myself, okay, this is great, but then we seem delusional that even the message that is coming from members of parliament who are influencing people, because I don't think we realize, on the flip side, we don't realize when you have put food in the belly of somebody who didn't have, there is a certain amount of control you then have over them later on. So this whole cycle whereby somebody can give 200 shillings, you essentially control the narrative together. How do you, because people, clapped, and I thought this is great, and it really didn't matter who it was. But the fact that we are in our heads now thinking that with a dilapidated foundation, that you can get to the place where a developed country is today. And this is the danger in something becoming sloganeerism, because now it has become a slogan. Nobody's actually thinking about what it will take to get from here to there. And, Okoh Tata says it all the time, that if you want to be like the developed, you must do what the developed did. And that you must have the foundations that they did. If you keep promising that this is where you want to go, you must do what they did. But then how do you change? You've talked about that the people must make the decision. How do you change the mind or change the reality of a people who are dependent on that thing for that day to now think differently tomorrow and say, actually, you know what? This is not the person. The one who gave you 200 shillings yesterday and you had a meal with your family, this is not the person who is going to make things right tomorrow so that I don't have to depend on that 200. How do you split from that reality?
There is a narrative of fishing. When you go fishing and I bring you a fish, there is a hell of a difference when I teach you how to fish. And I think Kenyan, because politicians are a product of the society. Sadly to say that a biggest percentage of the Kenyans are also corrupt, because they have been corrupted by our political system. One, there is no government policy called 2-term or 1-term. I've not read it anywhere. I don't think there is any bill that has been passed that is called 2-term. But when you see the people in government singing, dancing, and screaming a 2-term, you wonder which government policy is that. Secondly, leadership is an opportunity, is a sacred opportunity to trust. It is actually an office where you are entrusted to work on behalf of other people. And when leaders understand that, and the Mwananchi also understand that when somebody is elected, is not put into a position of privilege, but of trust to act on their own behalf, then they are going to change the narrative. If the Mwananchi tomorrow decides to transform and to sanitize our politics, they have that ability. You've seen that now, if you are given 50 shillings, 200 shillings, and then you shout, you fight each other, you abuse the other politician, you are hired as a goon to go and fight and be used. Then after that, so what? So I want to challenge also the Kenyans that they need to understand that this, whatever the politicians are doing, is called political expedient for their own benefit, for their own survival. But they absolutely have no interest for the mwananchi, and is incumbent upon the people of Kenya to wake up and make that change, to wake up and take their position. Because even if I preach to you about the rights that you're supposed to enjoy, about the privileges that you have to take the step, it's also upon Kenyans, because if you continue bashing the politicians and the Kenyan need to wake up, you don't need to be brought fish when the politicians want. You can actually go and fish and eat. If you want to eat at midnight, if you want to eat it in the morning, it is up to you, and you have that opportunity. So don't be taken ufala by the, for lack of a better word, by the politician.
It's the story of the hunting dog that you're talking about, that the hunting dog does not realize the power it has to go.
Imagine.
Speaks to Kenyans in terms of sieving politicians who come to them and asking the difficult questions in order to get the right person into that office. Kenyans are able to hunt for leaders they want and for Kenyans to change their story. Because today we also say garbage in, garbage out. What you put in is what you get out. So what is our responsibility as Kenyans in ensuring that people that we put into these offices are people who will deliver? Because that responsibility is not on the politician. It is on us to sieve and select the very best, because we say Kenya is not limited to the few individuals who exist today to rule. Kenya has individuals who can go and work, and it's upon mwananchi to make that decision. But then again, even with the tokenism that we see go around, that we have made promises we will deliver, but you have to keep on explaining on these projects. One would say, just do your work. Don't tell us. We will tell you if you've delivered or not.
You see, can you imagine a dog protecting the owner, and this dog is the one that has killed this animal? It has not eaten. So Kenyans should stop protecting the hunters. They have the ability to hunt for themselves. They have the ability to decide whether they want a chicken, they want a cow, they want a wild beast. Because when you see, for example, we've now turned into goons. You've seen the goons being hired, or people to go and even heckle in church. Unfortunately, the more the muscle you have, and there is no politician who has gone to the market, sold their own cow, and brought the money to the people. No, these are public resources. It is the money that is supposed to go to school. This is your money that is supposed to go to the hospital. This is the money that is supposed to go to the road. And you are dancing and screaming because you've been given a share, a certain percentage of a share of what is rightful yours that has not been delivered. So if we get enlightened like that as Kenyan, I think we will transform this country. This country will change.
Do you think the folks who are hired as goons, those who are brought in as hecklers, and all these other things that we see as a menace to society, right? Do you think that if they had gainful, adequate engagement, that they would do this kind of thing?
Absolutely. Anybody who has who is busy, you remember your proverb, the Angola proverb, will be busy. You will not have no time to ask many questions. You will have no time to be ferried and hired to do all this gymnastics. If we are, you see, unfortunately, our economy is very tough. The last years, we used to, when I ask you for 1,000 shillings, you will give me very fast. Nowadays, if 3-4 people meet and you ask for 2,000-3,000 shillings, everybody will struggle. And nipatie sotano, I say, hakuna, it's not there. And if Kenyans see an opportunity that I'll go to a political rally, get 1,000, I'll put food on the table. So the issue here is if everybody has the ability, if the government puts the infrastructure and the atmosphere to ensure that if there is job for our Kenyans, there is a good environment to do business, the taxes that are there are not punitive, I think we will have a sober citizen. We will have a sober Kenyan, and we'll have a great country. Yeah.
It also seems pretty difficult that I think across the board, and this is the thing, because the burden of the responsibility to move a nation forward is actually not on government.
Yep.
It's on the people. But then we still can't seem to pinpoint that thing, save a revolution on the streets, that's actually going to turn the hands of time. And so we keep saying, well, the citizen needs to do their part, needs to be more engaged, needs to be more knowledgeable, needs to be okay. But I'm struggling sometimes, and I say, okay, how exactly? Because you can sit here and you can go and vote. People are afraid to go vote because they say their vote will be stolen. They say engage your MP. Well, they're never there. They say, okay, talk to your MP. I've sent letters, they don't answer. All right, I've gone to rallies and I've tried to speak. I've been, brought to the ground by the security. So what and how is this thing that citizens then must get involved beyond conversations that we have, beyond trying to move the needle? And if we're saying that revolution is too violent, what are people supposed to do? Because it might be interesting to note that the progressive societies that we see today, none of them established as progressive societies without a preceding bloody conflict to push the status quo of the day out of the way, and to then establish tenets and the foundation upon which they were able to build. They put systems in place, but it was uncomfortable, it was painful.
I want to caution the political class that as much as we have all these challenges, it's not business as usual with Kenyans, because we have now an informed citizenry, and you've seen them coming out to agitate for their rights. One, we've seen the president of Kenya, His Excellency William Ruto, moving around the country on the issue of the Nyota. We started with the bottom-up. We went to the Hustler Fund.
Empowerment.
We were told that there were several billions that were lost through the Hustler Fund. Now we have the Nyota. All these are reactions to an informed citizen. All these are attempts to try to kutuliza damu of the movement of the Gen Zs. They are not well thought, in my own opinion, government policies. They are not planned to transform the young people. They are plans to cool them down so that now time can pass and we go to the next election. What we need to do as a citizen, we have a basic structure of government. We have the executive. Let the executive do their job. We have the legislators. Let them do their job. We have the judiciary. Let them do their job. When we see legislators are more executive than the executive, then there is no proper separation of power. We see our MPs, an MP speaking like a CS, and a CS speaking like he's the MP. And what I told you is the lack of the constitutionalism. Let's just obey and follow our constitution. I think we will be able to have a better country. For example, the Mama Mboga, they need a light. I was moving around in Kajiado, and most of the sokos, the lights are not working. Why do you have to put an electric floodlight? Well, we have solar that is free. You don't need to be paying for this electricity. It's common sense. That's not happening. So I think we need now to live about this issue of why do you build houses for people? who can decide which kind of house you want. Just ensure that the economy is working. Just ensure that we have the right policy. The people who qualify for jobs are given the work, and Kenyans are going to work their way out. And government is not there to do business. We've seen government now looking like they want to do everything. No. It is the responsibility of Kenyans to advance their own country. And we should not make politics our currency. Speaking politics during the day, just be part of it. I was in the US. I was privileged to be in the US when the current president was shot, Donald Trump. And my friend asked me, we go for dinner. I told him, no, we can't go. The presidential candidate has been shot. And you know what he told me? That is their thing. This is ours. So politics does not affect their day-to-day activities. But sadly in Kenya, if two politicians don't say hi to each other, it can determine whether we will come to work today, whether children will go to school tomorrow. It's very sad. It is very sad, unfortunate.
Indeed.
Yes.
That's where we are. All right. Thank you for being here this morning. To open up and to shed light on some of these things, very important. Dr. Kanchori Daniel has been here with us this morning. Is it you at the center of it, people? If not, perhaps we need to do something about it. Asante sana. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has announced that 200 additional officers will be deployed to the Kenya Coast Guard Service to bolster patrols and secure key border waterways amid intensified efforts to curb the smuggling of illicit alcohol and narcotics. Murkomen said the government considers the fight against drug and alcohol abuse a priority this year, noting that traffickers have increasingly exploited Lake Victoria and Lake Turkana due to their shared borders with neighboring countries. He said a stronger Coast Guard presence will help safeguard livelihoods, improve compliance and restrict illicit trade. The DCI has released a new update on the investigation into the death of former Lugari MP, the late Cyrus Jirongo, saying 28 people have already come forward and recorded statements to assist with the ongoing investigation. Jirongo, who was 64, was reported to have died in a road accident in the early hours of December 13th last year after his car collided with a Climax coach bus on the Nairobi-Nakuru road. According to the DCI, among those who have given statements were 7 survivors of the accident, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, who made a voluntary statement earlier, as well as former Vihiga Senator George Haniri and his wife Eunice Chelagat. The family of 23-year-old University graduate Sean Makumwangi, who went missing in Kasarani Estate, is demanding answers after his body was found at Nairobi City Mortuary under unclear circumstances. Sean is said to have gone missing on December 7th, only for his body to be discovered with severe injuries, sending shockwaves through the family.
Kitu yenye tunabaki tukijiuliza, like the t-shirt tulimpata nayo mochari, kazini yake anasema hiyo si t-shirt yake. So we are wondering, like was he lured in kwa nyumba akapigiwa huko, wakaona like t-shirt alikuwa nayo initially imesoak in blood, wakamtoa akampea ingine. Unajua tuko na so many questions zenye tujui nani hata anaweza akajibu. Hata funny enough, unajua nimeongea tu na OCS leo asubuhi, akaniambia hawana any information.
7 people, including a 25-year-old girl, are being held by police in Rabai, Kilifi County after they were arrested for allegedly practicing witchcraft. The group was found by police officers performing rituals at the home of Mzee Mburusi Gibson with strange objects associated with sorcery. That set up a meal covered in red cloth and then wrapped in banana leaves at the entrance of the home. They're expected to be arraigned in court after police complete investigations. And police officers in Ahero town in Kisumu County are continuing the investigation following the mysterious death of a fellow administrative police officer who was working at Ahero police station. The officer's body was found hanging from a rope at his home inside the station. Nyando Area Police Commander Isaiah Moses said the officer's death was discovered by a colleague who came to his home to check on him after several attempts to call him failed. And finally, thousands of families in Kenya could soon see relief from the high costs of managing sickle cell disease after the Ministry of Health announced plans to integrate the condition into the Social Health Authority's benefits package. The ministry says this move will provide consistent care, covering diagnostics, medicines and blood transfusions, and reduce the financial burden that has long weighed on patients and their families. The ministry said sickle cell disease remains one of the country's most serious yet under-recognized public health challenges, with an estimated 14,000 children born with the condition each year. That's the Newswire. I'm Lea Ubag.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Presidency is fairly interesting in the sense that it will actually take us to a new consciousness.
Swali zile watu waulizi na swali muuliza na shangala ni aje, kwani huku kunaendaje?
30 billion shillings annually on travel alone in public service.
A Kenyan can even demonstrate every single day of his life that Ruto must go. That is the only message of his demonstration. That is his right.
That bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of those who are in the right.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
SRC's mandate is constitutional. It's not an advice. It's actually something you must do.
Must do.
Like now, you abandon, of course, the narrative of wheelbarrow, Mutomjengo, Mamamboga, and all those, that narrative, that rosy narrative.
Your expenditure is 3.3 trillion, and you're collecting only 2.5. Out of that 2.5, you're spending 1.8 trillion to service loans and so forth.
That the CDF kit, it's itself a symptom of corruption.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're coming in at 7 minutes after 8 o'clock, and this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We continue with conversations this hour. Where are you tuned in around the country, around the region, and indeed the world? This is conversations that we have that matter and are necessary for us to keep talking about. So whether you're tuned in around the country, the region, and the world, our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. And you are tuned. Our audience is on KTN this morning. Karibuni Sana, Ndu, Okoh, and Dennis with you as we continue our conversations this morning. We're going to get into one around funding, and oftentimes you've asked the question that where the problem and where actually is the problem. Joining us and this is at a government level, and joining us in this hot seat for that conversation this morning is Walter Okello, who is a governance and policy expert. Good morning to you, Walter.
Good morning, Du.
How are you doing?
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, how are you?
Pleasure. Thank you for having me this morning.
Karibu Sana. First of all, let's get into it, because as you may know, Dennis goes around the continent every week, comes back from our country.
Mm-hmm. We're in Angola.
Okay.
The country is twice the size of France, so two Frances get into one Angola.
Quite responsible.
Wow. We can have a conversation about that later, but okay.
Yeah, but then again, also it is the 7th largest country in the continent, rich in gold, diamond, and oil, and all this being used to propel the country's economy. They're also big on baobab mabuyu, in the country, and makes the country looks good, especially when you're flying over it. Baobab just looks good from above. But let's go to the proverb today, and it is the one who asks many questions never buys anything. The one who asks many questions never buys anything. What are Angolans saying?
Thank you, Dennis. The one who asks many questions never buys anything. Mm-hmm. Recently in Kenya, there's this music that says, maswali mingi. Yeah, you're asking too many questions. Is it about the shilling? So I think what comes to my mind is it's good to be inquisitive, yes, but it's also good to be decisive. It's good to make decisions at some point. So you want to ask too many questions, perhaps you may not really get to point of satisfaction. So good to have an inquisitive mind, interrogate the scenario, but get to some point where you make a decision, based on what you want. So critical, know what you want, then go to the market knowing what you want, and you will find it.
Nice.
And you will actually find it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look into funding this morning. And there are many questions around that when we look into what's happening at a governance scale in the country, whether we're looking at the economy, whether we're looking at budgets, whether we're looking at debt, whether we're looking at expenditure across board. Let's look at what funding what if, first of all, from the whole of it, what is government funding supposed to achieve?
Thank you, Ndu. Perhaps you allow me a second to reintroduce myself as we get into that. I come from the background of having been in governance, having worked in the devolution space since the advent of devolution. Since 2013, I got to work in the county environment, particularly county of Siaya, initially as a nominated MCA, working around legislative issues in the county assembly, the devolved governance. Then later on had opportunity to transit to the executive, where we then executive implements policies, legislations, and all that. And at the core of all these activities is the question of funding. How does government operate without funding or with insufficiency in funding? In my mind, funding, as you put it, is supposed to achieve service delivery. The citizens are looking for services. Citizens are looking for healthcare, quality healthcare. Citizens are looking for water in their home areas. Citizens are looking for support with agricultural systems. So funding is supposed to be able to facilitate citizens who are in production, people who are doing farming, people who want to access education, they should be able to access it. So funding is supposed to be able to avail quality infrastructure for education, for instance. Funding is supposed to avail infrastructure in terms of roads, for instance, so that there's proper connectivity. So that as a business person, you want to move from one point to another, you do not have inhibitions because of those challenges. So government funding should be able to address all these, but at the same time, we have the macro level of operations where the government operates, where government engages in borrowing, for instance, to be able to fund its operations, both at the national level operations, and we also have county level operations in the context of Kenya. So my straight answer is that is what funding is supposed to achieve: enable efficient service delivery at both levels of government.
What would ask the question then? If you look at Kenya as a country where we are today, and the funding that predominantly comes from the citizens through taxation, right? One would ask the question, if Kenyans pay taxes, government has these funds, why aren't Kenyans getting services commensurate to the taxes collected?
Thank you, Dennis, for that question. First of all, the issue of tax is a demonstration of relationship between the government and the people. Are Kenyans able to willingly pay taxes? Currently, what we witness is a case of shortfalls in our budget estimates. The budget estimates, the budget policy statement that was released recently indicates that we're going to have a deficit of up to 5.3% in the funding. This illustrates that the government is not yet able to collect optimally what they target. And there are many reasons why that shortfall is there. Some of them are structural, some of them are institutional, but critically is the capacity of Kenyans to pay. Do we have the sufficiency of capacity, financial capacity? Have we enabled our productive, are we investing in our productive scenarios so that Kenyans are able to generate taxes which then go to government? And once that revenue is collected in terms of taxes, what is the flow back to the people? Because that is then when people appreciate that, I am somebody in the market, I have paid my taxes, and I see a road being done. I see a floodlight being erected in my market area. I see education becoming cheaper and more affordable. So, of course, there's that disconnect that still exists between our taxes, the 1 inches taxes that are collected vis-a-vis the government paying back. But perhaps the catch is we have seen a rise in collection. And you watched the Minister for Finance, John Mbadi, the other day, talk about our improvement in our fiscal outlook, that we are free from the risk of being negatively, adversely listed by the IMF and other bodies. And that speaks to the fact that we're able to pay. We are paying our debts. So yes, we are collecting and paying debts, which is good at macro level, but we're then not able to have enough to be able to invest downwards. And that is why you see counties up in arms saying that there's delay in disbursements. And once there's delay in disbursement of funds, it means service delivery cannot be effected as required. The PFM Act, which is the Bible for, that guides the relationship between counties and how they operate financially, prescribes the timelines when government should be able to disburse monies to the counties. And specifically, it says by the 15th of every month, in Section 17, to be specific, that by 15th of every month, the national government should have released money to the counties. But, over time, we find that there's delay. As we speak here today on the 22nd today, I think it's just 2 days ago that the disbursements for December were released. So it means already counties are in arrears by a month or so.
And why is this?
Why is this? That is the big question. Do we have predictability in our... Are we observing adherence and fidelity to predictability of our fiscal system? I've just stated and know that the PFM guides that by 15th of every month, money should go down. Perhaps the underlying issue why this happens is because we do not have enough. We are sort of living hand to mouth. So that when we collect these in a month, then government has their priorities. We have to meet certain deadlines. The international lenders are on our neck, so we pay them first. And then if something is left, kidogo, if a little is left, is then now we start looking internally. So we look good. On the macro, we look good to people that we owe money internationally. And right now, we are happy that, we have, I think in history, some of the hugest reserves in terms of dollars. Our inflation is contained at about 5%, which is a good thing. But in terms of then this money reflecting the pockets of wananchi, coming downwards to where it matters in the villages and in the streets, then that is where the problem is. So it's a question of priorities, which could be historical, that we are coming from a certain hole. But again, it's about, people want services here now. They want to feel, if you say the economy is doing better, do I have money in my pocket?
But isn't that exactly where the problem is at? Because, fine, we collect, we pay our debt and everything else. But look at the wastage that we see in the country. Look at the corruption scandals that we hear. Look at the Auditor General's report. And one goes to conclude that Kenya does not have a problem really in terms of collecting or even paying debt. Kenya has a problem in terms of wastage and corruption that we see on a daily basis. Because one would say, if we know for a fact that we're losing 3 billion shillings a day, why not seal that loophole? If we know for a fact that, say, a county governor does not have to travel to Singapore for benchmarking, just needs to walk into a hotel and sit and structure policies that will change situations, we'd not have to spend all that money. Look at how much you're spending to move governors, presidents across the country. For what exactly? Our problem, one would say, especially when it comes to funding, if we just decide to get rid of unnecessary things that we do on a daily basis, Kenya has funds to do its business, you reckon?
Yeah, Dennis, you're right, and I'm glad you mentioned Singapore, which has been, quite in our lips lately. And for me, Singapore is metaphorical. It represents a destination that we want to go to. But how do we get to Singapore, for instance? How do we invest in our productive areas? Are we able to quickly map out and say that, for instance, regionally, if you go to the coast region, which is known for tourism potential, what sort of investment do we need to make at the coast region, specifically targeting that region, to be able to enhance productivity so that, we invest? It's like taking your cow, the cow that gives you the best milk, you give them the best food, so best input, best output. But to the question of wastage, in terms of prioritization, are we prioritizing, for instance, right now, kids have just gone back to school, the CBC, but looking around news and see what is happening in various places, Kajiado, for instance, I saw it in the news, a number of kids have not yet gone back to school. And even for those that have gone to school, there are issues of infrastructure. Now we have the issue of pathways, kids going to study STEM, but you do not have laboratories in some of these institutions and key facilities for that matter. So it's about what are our priorities? And if we want to be a country that plays in the league of Singapore and other developed countries, we must be very intentional about our investment. So I agree with you that we have to relook in terms of our prioritization. We have to relook at our productivity, and we have to be moderate and modest about our certain of our expenses. We can't live large, like we've already arrived. We can't live like we're already in Singapore. We must live like we're already working and walking towards Singapore. And the Singapore journey is a story of labor, of people folding up their sleeves and working themselves out square and hard to be able to achieve some of those manifestations that we admire today.
Well, there are a number of economists who use the PFM Act as their daily Bible are of the opinion, indeed, that Kenya doesn't have a revenue problem. That in terms of money that comes in and then how it's appropriated, Kenya doesn't have a problem with enough money being within the ecosystem, within the economic ecosystem. That the problem is an expenditure problem. What you're spending it on, with what regularity, and who is controlling it. That is where the problem is. And that if that cycle were to be fixed, then to a large extent, you're able to sort out this issue. Would you agree?
I would agree. And first of all, just to address briefly on the question of the revenue and the potentiality in the country. Today, the CRA, the Commission of Revenue Allocation, projects that the potential of all our 47 counties, we're able to collect 218 billion in a year. But what are we collecting today? We're collecting just about 58 billion. That is as far as the report that was released in August 2024 is concerned, that spoke to 2023-2024 financial year. So it means, we're just barely collecting about 30 or so % of our potential. So that is where the first problem is. We are collecting way below our capacity. And, that can be attributed to many issues, some of them institutional, some of them structural. Why are we not able to collect what we are capable of? Some of them are legal issues, but a number of them are also just about the drive. We want to focus more on what comes from the national revenue, what is easy, than going out to labor for what we need. But as you put it, even once we collect that little that we're able to collect, do we have our priorities right? Do we have the fiscal discipline that if we have this in the budget, then we are going to spend as per the budget. We are going to spend as per what is approved. And for instance, right now, I'm sure you're aware of the very intense budget cycle, the 4 stages of budgeting that goes through. And right now we're in January. Most counties and the national government are already working on their county fiscal strategy papers because this is what speaks to the priorities that departments are supposed to run with. So the question is, do we maintain fidelity to the priorities that we put in the fiscal strategy paper as captured in the CIDP, the county integrated development plans, the annual development plans, because these are documents that are formed by public participation. The citizens have come out and said, for us what we want, expand Thika Superhighway, do XYZ, do 1, 2, 3. But once we have it, is that what we spend on? Or do we then have political expediency coming up? And, because of some convenience, we say, because we want these votes or we want these, then we vary the priorities. I think that then becomes the problem. So for me, the question of fidelity to the budget as it is, fiscal discipline and prudence of management of our resources is what then we need to observe to be able to address some of the funding and resource issues.
You see, another way of funding the economy would be on the policies we've put in place for people to be able to do business. And one would say that Kenya has one of the toughest tax regimes that is making it difficult for investors to come in. And what that means is, what would have been a revenue that government is getting through taxes because investors have come in and manufacturing is ongoing, is going to other countries that have inviting good business working environment, that we are losing revenue because of our own policies. You look at how easy it is for a young person to start the business in the country. It is difficult because of the stages there are for one to just get approvals to start their business. And with that, then, through the policies that we have, The government is unable to collect taxes it wants. The government is unable to get the funding that it needs because of its own policies that it has put in place that makes it difficult for businesses to spur, that makes it difficult for many to operate. As we speak today, many businesses say we do not understand the new decision on matters to do with e-teams, perhaps, And businesses are saying we do not understand how this works. We've not been involved in this process. So if we change our policies, if we involve entrepreneurs in the country, make it easy for everyone to get those who want to get into business, are we likely to see a situation where the revenue gaps that we keep seeing will be addressed, even if it's gradually, because we are looking at the problems being our policies, fixing that and ensuring that we maximize on the potential that Kenya has?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ndu, entirely. Sorry, Dennis. On the question of ease of doing business as first point of takeoff, have we intentionally created an environment that, one, attracts people to do business, starting with the local business people themselves? We've trained many people in entrepreneurship, but do we then make it possible for them and easy for them to start off in terms of the compliances that are required? How many licenses, for instance, does one need to pay for to get into the hospitality business, for instance? You may need single business permit, you need license for NEMA, I think, for the noise pollution, the music copyright. There's so many of them, and sometimes all these catalog of requirements make it prohibitive to start business. I am glad I've seen lately the government has tried to do the Nyota project for young people, putting some money in the pockets of young people, which is commendable for a start in terms of having some money, but in terms of having that money work in the long term, are we able to then, that 22,000 that a young person is given, is the environment conducive, or they're going to spend 30% of it in licensing and 30% of it in setting up, so that by the time you have your capital, you want to start the business, the money is entirely spent. So yes, the first thing to do, make the business environment conducive, both for local investors and external investors, so that we don't have people running to neighboring countries where they feel the tax regime is predictable, there's stability in the tax, and there's value for the tax that you pay. So that is critical. And secondly, on the question of opening up more avenues for revenue to flow in and managing it prudently at the center of every resource that we get, so that there's accountability, and accountability not just in paper, not just in reports, but people feeling that indeed, if our money that we collected this year, 4 trillion, for instance, that we're likely to spend in the new budget, you can demonstrate and see that for this financial year, our budget was 4 trillion, our healthcare has significantly shifted. Our education outlook has shifted. Our agricultural production has shifted. Yeah, so that there should be, some sort of incremental advancement in terms of service delivery, because that is what people expect of their government.
Okay, so the two questions, and they come together, because when you speak about the Nyota program, for example, whereas at the face of it, it seems like a great thing, but it would appear that without proper planning, then what you've done essentially is that you've taken another 50,000 shillings, you've put it in the hands of 100,000 people, but you do not know if that money is actually going to yield what you expected it to do by activating an economic activity in every one of these 100,000 people. If you do not know what it is that they're going to do, you're going to give 50,000 shillings to somebody who may meet their immediate needs, which is a reality. They will pay their rent arrears, they will say, okay, well, my school fees balance, whatever the case may be. And then after that, what is left is when they'll say, okay, maybe I ought to buy a few potatoes and see if I can sell chips on the side of the road in the evening. That's the reality. We can't imagine that people who are thinking to start a business, because you know what? To run a profitable business in this country, the least amount of money you will spend on licenses comes to about 31,000 shillings.
Yep.
It's already 31,000 shillings gone from 50,000. Yep. So you've got, give or take, 19,000 shillings left. What are you supposed to do with the rest of that money? So it seems to me like it's almost as though it is a political ploy to then say, okay, let's keep people encapsulated in this idea of me. Because if we were serious about it, we would know that if you had experience and advantage, that in the next 1 year, calendar year, that the 50,000 shillings that you gave to these 100,000 people, you will not be able to, number one, see it, and that you have minimal in terms of percentage of those businesses that still exist. Would you be far different from that in your thinking?
I wouldn't for many reasons, including what you've stated, but also most importantly for me, while we laud the Nyota program for thinking about the young people, because the young person in Kenya today is highly disenfranchised. They feel like the sense of belonging is not there. Most of them are educated with university degrees, with college trainings, with diplomas, with post-Form 4 trainings. But the question is, where next? So the sense of disillusionment among young people in Kenya is at peak level. So the fact that somebody thought about them to, put some money in their pockets is first step. But as you put it, the question of sustainability, the question of learning and building from where we are coming from. Remember, we just come from a point where there was the Hustler Fund that was put in the hands of people. And not long ago, we saw the minister say that, we can't even trace so many millions. Or
11 billion.
11 billion, to be exact, which is cause for alarm. What lessons are we coming with from the Hustler Fund menace? What lessons are we picking from the other similar programs that have been tried to put in place? What is the design concept of our policies and interventions? So, good money in the pocket, 25,000, 50,000 shillings, but what do you expect me to do with it?
Okay.
Are you attaching, am I being given training enough in terms of entrepreneurship? And even if I got the right training, what outflows do I have? For instance, right now, the government says that young people are being employed through the housing programs. Are we able to then tie, for instance, the programs that are there with the training that these people have, enable them, for instance, to start their construction programs within these housing schemes? That would make sense. Perhaps put them together, enhance their capital base to 1 million or something, something that then can enable them to substantively take part and get into that industry. Otherwise, for all it is, as you put it, it could be just money to sustain us for a day, relieve them from immediate daily.
Not to soften their hearts in terms of a political advantage. The second part of that question then would be, when you talk about budget making, because it seems like too rigorous a process, because the budget period starts in September, all right, of every year, and hopefully by the time you come around to May of the next year, you've got all your ducks in a row, you've crossed your T's, you've dotted your I's, and then you come and present to the country essentially how you are going to appropriate and spend in the next year and where this money is going to come from. The 5.3% that you talk about, where is a deficit, right? So when a budget is being made, and we know this because the number crunchers are at Treasury, when you say there's a budget deficit and you say that this is where we're going to get it from, are these sure, or is it imagined that perhaps we'll fill it up here? You know, number one, that you've not put in the requisite structure in place to collect taxes across the country. You know this. Even when you're budgeting, you're aware. So how then do you make a budget on something that is fundamentally flawed, where you know that the structural ecosystem doesn't exist? You have a deficit of 5.3%. When put into shillings and cents, it's quite a lot of money. How do you then do that? Present it to the nation and say, this is what we're going to do. Do you then get surprised halfway into the year when you can't send capitation, you can't fund this, you can't fund the other thing? Should we? I'm surprised that we are surprised, because at the very beginning, you started on a flawed foundation.
Yeah, and your question reminds me of a concept called the cargo cult mentality. Cargo cult mentality speaks to the imagination that, by some dint of wish, by some spiritual hopefulness, if I see things going on good on my neighbor's side, I can just sit, close my eyes and wish it, and it's going to happen. The cargo cult mentality. And sometimes I think we, go on that tangent, we go on that drift that, let us put this budget out there, let us put our plans. Somehow along the way, things will work out, and sometimes not appreciating history. And you see then the impact of this is that we constantly have deficits. And that is why we constantly see most of our counties, for instance, strain because counties plan and budget. And as you say, the budget making process is rigorous. It involves public participation. It involves approval by the county assemblies going out there. It involves the ADPs that are presented. Right now, counties are doing the CFSPs, the county fiscal strategy papers, in the hope that they're going to get the money. a governor, for instance, commit to do a project. For instance, in my county where I come from, there was a project to do rice mill, from scratch. Fortunately, that is done and now running, but you see, it took some time. So the people are benefiting from it, but they could have benefited right from earlier on. We have massive road projects going on across the county where I come from, but you see, they have to overlap into different financial years, perhaps because of having to review the budgetary provisions that are available. So it is a funding problem. But it's also more of a planning problem, as you put it. It's more of a planning problem because I know for sure that we have consistently collected below our capacity and below target. We have forever fallen, but we keep planning without over projection.
And should you? Should you actually plan for how a country is going to, for how a country is going to live, literally, put the lights on, keep people fed, all of this, send your children to school? Should you plan on something that you don't have? Because think about budgeting as a concept. You plan with what you have. You plan with what you have. Yeah. So we seem to be doing it the other way. We plan and then we say, okay, let me go and look for the money, as opposed to doing in the opposite direction. And then the bulk of this planning is rested, and this is it is for payment of debt, it is for development, it is for recurrent expenditure, it is for all of that. Majority on taxes. I want to know one country that has developed to the status that we're talking about, this place that everybody wants to go to, that has developed on taxation. Is there?
There isn't, and that's why you talk about fiscal discipline and fiscal diligence. And that is why we do mid-term projects planning. That's why we had Project 2030, projecting that by 2030, by a certain, that period, and now we're just about how many years off? Is it about 4 or 5? The idea was that we are going to invest in our most productive areas that would then minimize our need to go to debt. But as long as we do not invest in areas that are going to give us production, as long as we're not going to invest in our blue economy, for instance, which is a sleeping giant across the nation, Nyanza, for instance, where I come from, and the coast and all over, because then we are sure that somehow our revenue is going to go up without having to go into debt. But as long as we don't do that, then much as we glorify ourselves that we are doing debt well in paying our debts, but essentially we are preparing to borrow more debt. Like right now with that deficit of 5.3% gap, definitely in the new year we're going to have to go for debt, whatever form, whether it is internal borrowing. We say we want to maintain our sovereignty, so we're not going to borrow outside. But even as we mop the domestic debt, it means that what if only government is able to borrow domestically and other private small people are not able to borrow? So it means it's only government doing business. And that is why you hear business people still complaining that they don't feel the money. So I think, as you say, it's about a question of planning. But my solution is let us invest in our most viable and productive sectors.
You see, even as we invest in the most viable and productive areas, I just did a little bit of lookup on how much, say, counties have received so far since 2013. Yeah. And that amount is mind-boggling. It's in the trillions.
4 trillion.
4.1 trillion.
Yeah, 4 trillion to be exact.
4.1 trillion.
Yeah.
And you look at 4.1 trillion, that together read with on-source revenue, which comes to around 270 billion shillings. And one asks the question, today, as a Kenyan living here, if I walk across this country, across all the counties, where is the 4.1 trillion shillings? I can't wrap my head around it, because 4.1 trillion shillings ought to have changed this country and would have seen movements like never seen before, like the rice plant that you're talking about with 4.1 trillion shillings and the revenue allocation over time. That ought to have been done a long time ago. But there explains, gives an explanation of the fact that perhaps service delivery is never center and core to what funding that is received should do. That we will do everything else, we will plan about the next election, we will go for all these meetings that we want to have, but we really never focus on service delivery, because 4.1 trillion Kenya shillings ought to have changed this country.
Yeah, mind-boggling, yes. True, that's the exact figure. Since 2013, 4.1 trillion has gone down to the counties. Two sides of the coin. One, the fact that even before devolution, this money was somewhere. This money has been in Kenya. Now we can say that 4 trillion has gone to devolution. But where was this money before? What was it doing before? So we look at the glass as half full initially, that something has been done. And when you go across the breadth and length of this country, indeed there's substance. And allow me to use the example of my county because I am most familiar with that. Initially, when the county government started, there were no roads. Today, you walk around, roads have been opened largely, and the current administration of my Governor Orengo, for instance, has intentionally invested in doing tarmac roads to improve the feel and look of urban areas. You go to a town like Ugunja, Kala, Ndori, there's tarmac roads being done, and that was not there before. You go to the hospitals, there's improvement at the Sia Referral Hospital, there's improvement in terms of, there's a theatre that has been done at about 68 million, that Siriwo rice mill has been done and is now able to produce rice, which ideally should be able to create employment and have a ripple effect in terms of productivity, engaging the farmers there. But that is not to say that what we're seeing is optimal. A lot more could still have been done with 4 trillion across the country. Part of the problem is most of our counties try to spread thin. In an attempt to achieve what is called equity. For instance, where I come from, we have 30 wards. So everybody is expecting something at the same time. And we just have a fixed size of a pie. So what do? You slice it all over in the small pieces. Everybody gets at least a tiny piece. In that process, then, the overall impact may not be immediately detectable. A borehole dug here, a small road opened there, a health dispensary done here. It may not be much in the macro outlook, but in terms of micro, small interventions, it is there. But what are we saying? Are we able to then identify mega projects, invest in them strategically, projects that are able to transform lives, projects that are able to inject money in the economy, because that is what people are looking for.
And are we able to do that, Walter? Because let's talk about even the counties from the western part. We have LREB counties, Lake Region Economic Bloc counties, right? Who have the resource that is, say, Lake Victoria and what that can do. These are the counties where sugarcane is grown. This is the area where we have rice, Are these counties sitting together to agree on major projects among themselves that they can both sit together and invest in for the benefit of the region? Because one would assume that there was a reasoning behind formation of all these blocks, LREB counties, is to look at the resources that we have as a collective and work together to having institutions, to having companies, to having job employment opportunities within these counties. Or are these just other briefcase institutions that have been put in place with no clear agenda moving forward?
Yeah, thank you. And the idea of regional economic blocks was a brilliant idea, and we have many of them across the country. You've just talked about the Lake Region Economic Block that brings about 12 counties or so. We have the Jumuiya La Pwani that brings the coast counties together. We have the one that brings Kitui and the other counties around that place. Brilliant idea that was supposed to make counties benefit from the economies of scale, that we come together, we put our resources together, and then be able to invest perhaps in strategic key flagship projects that are then able to have impact as compared to the small micro projects that counties then have to do on their own. But again, some of them, they've done well in terms of, bring people together, doing some of the projects together, but there are institutional and legal challenges that still prevail. Many times we've seen the control of budget raise questions, perhaps, for instance, about funding that supports these economic blocks. And there's no clear framework of these counties being able to invest together because in terms of cash disbursements, in terms of accountability, in terms of reporting, it's still at the county level. And counties also have their local priorities. But Dennis, let me give you a picture of how the budget of counties look like. For instance, if a county, like my county, operates... our county of Sia, for instance, as a typical example, has a budget of about 10 billion shillings in a financial year. You realize that about 66% of this is going to go into recurrent. That is the O&M, as well as questions of wage bill payment of salaries called P&E, personnel emoluments. Then what is left is then what goes to development. That is about, and the PFM demands that 30% of the budget minimum be put for development. And many counties are not achieving this. Sia, for instance, is one of the counties that has consistently been able to perform, be able to have 30% of the budget allocation go towards development, which is a good thing. But what is 30%? It's just about 3 billion shillings. Yeah. So overall, out there, you say 10 billion has come to the county, but what are we able to deploy to development? Just about 3 billion. And you want to spread this 3 billion through the length 30 wards, as an example. Other places like Kakamega, the wards are even much, much bigger, I think about 60 wards or so. So at the end of the day, it is about, unless we think strategically on how to enhance our revenue so that we're then able to increase, our portfolio of revenue that we're spreading, or just be deliberate and say that in this one financial year, we're going to address the water issue conclusively. But you see, the budget making process is it's people-centered. People come up with ideas. There's public participation, and everybody in their corner wants something. You're not going to say that, for instance, today I just want to invest in this ward. So the public are also impatient in terms of not wanting to wait too long, because they want services here and now. So part of the progress is when we made the constitution in 2010 that talked about 15% of revenue going to the counties and the rest remaining in the national. Do we have a progressive and incremental arrangement where we increase it? Because at the end of the day, the devolved system was supposed to be the functions, the service points take money to the people. So why do we still see a lot of monies retained at the center instead of dispersing it out there, so that our counties are able to invest qualitatively in projects that can truly transform the lives of people, have services delivered, have jobs created, because a lot of our young people do not have jobs. A lot of our parents are still struggling to access markets. A lot of our parents are struggling to take kids to school. This can only be done if there's true economic empowerment, money in the hands of people.
The issue of those projects for which in the books money has been spent, and whether those have been closed projects or not, is an issue. Uncompleted projects in the hundreds around the country for which money has already been spent even before you start new ones. Is there some merit in completing projects and not starting anything new, but finishing the ones for which money was spent, and to leave any kind of new project opening until those are finished? Is there merit in that?
There's big merit, because at the end of the day, these projects, much as they may be tied and associated with political figureheads, but essentially they are projects for the people. You have seen some counties, especially those counties that have had transitions mid-elections. For instance, a governor is elected for a certain term, first term. They start mega projects, and some of these projects are multi-year projects. Perhaps because of the cost involved, they cannot be done and completed in one financial year. So they have to overlap into subsequent financial years. But then you find another administration comes and they want to abandon that project. I think that is indiscipline, that is fiscal indiscipline, which must be called out. And it is important that we realize that every project started, it is not for Governor A or B, it is for the people, because that is what the Constitution demands, that project prioritization, project proposal should be a product of public participation. So the people have said, we want this mega, for instance, some production environment created. It's going to cost 100 million. In year one, we're only able to deploy 30 million. In year two, another 20. So even if there's disruption in the political outlook, we should ensure that the projects are completed so that there's value for money. And we do not have white elephants spread across the country.
You mentioned an amount of 3 billion shillings, and that goes towards kind of development that you can see happening, right? 3 billion shillings, you'll be able to see this has improved here and there in terms of development, right? So park that for a minute. The only two circumstances under which Kenya constitutionally can borrow is number one, for development, and number two, for the shortfall on budget, and that's only a 90-day period. That if you have a shortfall for 90 days, you can borrow to fill the gap. Right? So in only two instances can Kenya borrow, right? Now, if the amount of money from revenue that is then spent, first charge is debt, we're looking at quite a lot of money here. Almost 70% is going towards debt. And we're looking at money in the trillions. That Kenya's debt, as we speak today, is in the trillions. 10 trillion shillings, 11 trillion shillings is what Kenya owes. And more to come, because we can see even this money that we are being told, Nyota money is a loan. It's not a grant. I don't know which other money is. So this is money that is owed. But I reckon that if 11 trillion shillings were to have been put into Kenya's economy in the last even 20 years, you would see it. You said you could see 3 billion shillings, right?
Yep.
I reckon that you would see 11 trillion. And if you can't, that would lead our minds to think in one direction, that Kenya is paying back money for which its purpose was not fulfilled. The controller of budget has said time without number that they're unable to see a correlation between money that has come in for the purposes of development and that actual development. So, does Kenya actually owe this money that is supposedly being paid to the tune of 70% on revenue?
Thank you. Really mind-boggling too, and as you put it, it's very concerning that of all the revenue that we connect, 70% indeed goes to our debt servicing. But just to digress a little bit, and more concerning for me is the question of pending bills. Because pending bills for me speaks to our economic performance. Internal pending bills are the monies that we owe local service providers, the local business people. I'm glad that the Control of Budget has recently instituted or is enforcing a requirement where counties and governments are supposed to handle pending bills on what is called FIFO, first in, first out, so that people who perhaps offered services to government a couple of years ago and have been on the waiting line for long, can you settle that fast as we come progressively? Why is this important? Because that is then how you release money into the economy. So yes, at the macro level, again, because of pressures, because of sanctions, we're very fast to consider the external debts, and we have to pay them. Because if you don't pay, the consequences are severe here and immediate. But what about the monies that we owe locally? What about the monies that for a contractor, for instance, who borrowed money in the bank to do a government contract, but because of shortfalls in revenue, they've not been paid. Not too long ago, you saw some contractor, I think somewhere in one of the western counties, almost run berserk, because the bank is on your case. Auctioneers are on your neck. Yeah. So priority should be service debts, but could we also give proper prioritization to our local pending bills so that the business people are sorted and there's money in the economy? So yes, overall, I think there's need for government and Kenya as a people to take a stop, interrogate where we really are in terms of our fiscal movement. So that we're not just excited about the path we are walking, but can we reflect back the monies that we've borrowed, where have we been investing them? Are we able to account for them? And that is what I said earlier about investing in our most productive sectors. Not too long ago, there was talk about Ndanu Kulalu, Galana Kulalu, that was supposed to, have some impact on our agricultural productivity. Where did that go? And there have been many other such kind of investments that have swallowed up monies. So unless we take a stop and take a proper audit of our debt and the consequence of that debt, the impact on that debt, then I think we'll be doing a lot of running around and just, a feel-good kind of scenario without really making steps forward, even in the economic space that we want to advance to, of a real advanced, developed nation.
You see, Walter, one of the easiest way for us to borrow and implement projects that are touching the Mwananchi is by involving Mwananchi. Public participation in the text remains just being a suggestion, pretty much, because one would ask, okay, I want to invest in County X, right? I want to borrow to invest in this county. One would assume that I would go to the people of the county, sit down with them to understand that project that would change their lives and would have the highest return, that would make economical sense when I borrow. But you see, these conversations that we see, no pun intended, but it's being held at a macro level. Those are the highest officers who sit and decide a project they want to implement without involving Mwananchi, who should be part and parcel of the implementation of that project. And with that, you find like the Galana Kulalu, great idea, beautiful, but have we had this conversation with the local communities across the country if we want to address matters to do with food security? Have we spoken with Kenyans across the counties and how we can invest these funds in them so that they can feed themselves, other than having a centralized place where we want to feed the rest of the country, notwithstanding that we also have communities with different ways of feeding themselves. What someone in Mount Kenya would eat is not necessarily what someone in Kajiado wants to eat. Investing in the people for a combined and united approach to a problem. So if moving forward, how critical would it be then that we recognize a problem, have discussion with different communities, and invest in a project that Mwananchi is part of, and even part of implementation to address the problem? Because for me, that's where we lose the point. That's where we lose the connection.
Yeah, you're very right, Dennis. And the question of public participation, it was not put in the constitution for tokenism purposes. It's not just supposed to tick a box. It's supposed to be qualitative. And it cannot be qualitative until, one, the people are properly informed. The government and administration owes it to inform the people, to do qualitative civic education. Yeah, we have to sit people down and tell them, this is what we want to do, this is what we are proposing. Well, I know there's the question of representation, so that, through delegated authority, our parliamentarians can be sat down and talked to because they represent us in parliament. There's that authority, yes. But it's also important that we cascade it. The import of the constitution that we have now is that it's a pro-people. It's supposed to be, at the lowest level possible. People participate. But you cannot participate if there's no total disclosure, for instance, that we are proposing to do SGR, for instance, as a mega project that's supposed to revolutionize our transport and inject efficiency in our business environment. But this is what it's going to cost for a shilling. And this investment, what we project as the outcome is 1, 2, 3. So, number one for me, proper civic education. That then allows people to participate qualitatively, because otherwise it remains in the realm of tokenism and people just showing up and ticking a box that we came, pictures are taken, and it is said that public participation has happened. That then, and again, there's the question of silos, so that, as you said, our economy is interrelated. What is happening in Mount Kenya region, in the western region, in another coastal region and all, should, at the end of the day, contribute towards the national cake, the legendary national cake that you talk about, so that once you have the national cake, then you're able to distribute it and disperse it equitably to the people. So those are important national conversations that must be held in the context of transparency, in the context of accountability, because one of the things that is always in the minds of Kenyans is, yes, you collect, even if it's little, even the 3 billion, but can we account for it?
Yes.
What is the level of transparency and efficiency of the systems that we deploy? Yeah, so for me, critical public discourse that we must have involve everyone, right from the grassroots. Let every voice count in terms of the purpose, the expenditure, and what we do.
If you make a budget and you say that you're going to apply, I mean, this as a wrap up, and you say you're going to apply a certain amount to a particular line, and you say, okay, this is what we're going to do, whether you're going to release it in intervals. Should the time period come for the release of those funds and you actually don't make it happen, does the country owe itself money? Or you close the books and say, well, we're not able to do that, and so we didn't meet budget? Because we often assume that once the budget is read, that's it. What's a process that you must actually live out the tenets of the budget that you now presented to the country? So if within that budget you were supposed to give 60 billion and then you only ended up giving 25, where does the 35 billion go? And who accounts for that? And who's responsible to say, okay, you know what, at the end of the day, because there is then budget reporting, that at the end of the day, sorry folks, we budgeted 60 billion, we were not able to get it for whatever reason, or we did get it and we decided to appropriate it somewhere else. Who's responsible for that excess? For example, Kenya owes its education, it owes its children, to date, almost 70 billion shillings in capitation over the last 5 years. Who accounts for that? Who says, okay, we didn't make it happen? Who comes back and says, we didn't do this, we should, or we owe you, we're coming? I mean, how does this actually then balance out?
Yeah, and you've just mentioned education. You have not mentioned what is owed to SHA.
As I mean, it's just one example out of the very many.
Many. So it means we are perpetually living in on the edge in terms of what we owe ourselves, what the country owes the people. And as you put it, the budget-making process is rigorous, and it starts from planning, which should be meticulous. And how do you plan? You plan about what is it that I have at hand? What is it that I want to mobilize? What is it that I'm able to ask internally and generate? And once you plan, it goes through the approval processes, it goes through then implementation as a third phase, and finally the important phase is about reporting and auditing. That in this financial year we set out to do 1, 2, 3. Were we able to achieve? And did we achieve it prudently? And that is where independent offices come in, like the Office of the Auditor General, that then helps with in terms of auditing that was applied as instructed. And critically, in the question of control of budget, we have an independent office, the Office of the Control of Budget, that should be able to guide, and I think a number of times we've seen them stand firm, that this is what was budgeted for, can we just apply it as budgeted for? So most importantly, I think we have to give maintain fidelity and respect to our independent institutions that then offer control in terms of how we make our budget, because of the process that the budget making goes, it then becomes a people document. It's owned by the citizens. It's not an individual or central government kind of document. But the central government then also exists to manage as it were, so that if there's a shortfall, that is why the question of supplementary budget comes in, and you're able to project that, we were implementing, then we have a certain emergency. There's a disaster, for instance, there's drought that has emerged, and perhaps we need to reapply and reallocate resources as required, which then calls for supplementary budget. So management should be prudent, respect for institutional bodies, but also, importantly, respect and fidelity to the voice of the people as captured during the budget-making process.
Every time we have these conversations, there's always a reminder that there's a lot of work to be done, and that people have to essentially be woke in terms of what's really going on. Walter Okoh, governance and public policy expert, has joined us this morning to talk these matters. Thank you for being here in the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you. A pleasure being here. And I thank you for the great work that you're doing every morning, the people of Kenya.
Thank you very much. We'll continue with the conversations. Good morning, 9 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Busia branch of Kupet is calling on the national government to keep the grade 10 registration portal open, citing low student enrollment. Branch chairperson Okisai says many learners are still at home, warning that closing the system could disrupt learning in senior schools, some of which have not registered any students.
We are requesting the government to allow the KEMI, Kenya Education Management Information System, to remain open, to allow for 100% transition. Wakiwa wanasema wanaenda kufunga hii system ya KEMI na baadhi ya wanafunzi wangali nyumbani, how are they going to access schools? In Busia County, for example, I can list about 5 schools that have not even attracted a single learner, starting with Segero Secondary School, Apatit Secondary School, among others. Not even a single learner has reported. So ombi letu ni kwamba hiyo system ibaki ikiwa open, na ma principals should be given the freedom and the monotony to enlist learners.
He added that head teachers should be allowed to register learners to ensure full transition, noting that the county has so far achieved only 60% enrollment.
You realize that a day school imepatiwa wanafunzi from other counties because of poor and irregular placement of learners. So if the principal amepatiwa nafasi ya kuenter under what we refer to as a willing buyer and a willing seller, yule mwanafunzi ambaye anataka kukuja Mundika Boys, for example, akuje hapa, principal mweke kwa system na akubalike kuingia hapa, is when we can be talking of 100% transition. So far, we can just be talking of only 60% ya wanafunzi huenda wameingia kwa mashule zetu. So the government must stop being rigid. Kupet power. Power.
And Machakos Governor Vivian Ndeti has announced plans to establish level 4 hospitals in all 40 wards of the county to improve access to healthcare, especially in rural areas. Speaking after presiding over the swearing in of 11 level 4 hospital boards and 197 health facility committees, the governor urged residents to support the initiative, noting that improved health services will benefit the entire county.
Sisi kama county government ya Machakos tumeamua kwenda digital because that is the way. We have computerized our hospital system, our revenue system, everywhere, even our offices. We are going technology because there is no coming back. We have decided to devolve health as a county government of Machakos, and we are moving to the wards. If we have a level 4 hospital hapo, tibiwa hapo, Machakos kuja hapa, this when it is necessary.
And the family of the late Amos Isoka from KU Ward in Trans Nzoia County is appealing to well-wishers for support to purchase land for his burial. Amos died after undergoing a tooth extraction in Nairobi. His parents, who are squatters, say they are struggling financially and are overwhelmed by funeral expenses.
Siwezi kujua itakuwa namna gani kwa sababu Amos hakuna mahali ambapo naweza kusema kwamba mimi naweza kumuweka. Mimi mahali ambapo naishi haba si bangu, ni mahali pa mtu tu ambaye ni wa jamii.
Kila kitu ni Amos. Iwa hata sukari mtoto na kiitisha tu Amos anatoa shilingi yake 20 hata kama ameweka na nitumie. Mimi ani sina mbele na nyuma. Na Amos alitoka hapa akiniambia mama, tutapata point yetu, tutakaa vizuri. Hatutakaa tukihangaika tukichungia mashamba ya watu. Na sasa mimi nimepona. Nauliza, kweli mimi nataka tu haki itendeke. Kwa mtoto yangu nataka haki itendeke kweli.
KU Ward Representative Kennedy Mugush has urged leaders and charitable individuals to intervene and help ensure the deceased is accorded a dignified burial.
Na mmesikia hapa hata si kwao, akija sijui tutamweka wapi. So we are calling upon serikali iweze kusimama na hii familia. Na hata tukimaliza hiyo mambo ya mashishi, kuna watoto ambaye amewacha. Tungependa serikali ijitokeze. Mimi juzi niliona watu wakubwa wakati wamekufa. Tuliona wanasiasa wakichukua ng'ombe wanapelekea mtu ambaye ni tajiri. Tungependa wachukue hiyo mfano, saidie hii familia.
That's the News Wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
One of the things that are in our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's now 7 minutes after 9 o'clock and into the final hour of our conversations this morning on the Situation Room. And wherever you're tuned in, our live streams continue to be up on YouTube, Facebook and on X, and our audience on KTN this morning. The Situation Room gets into its final hour this morning with a conversation around sovereignty, law and territorial integrity. And to help us out in that conversation this morning, the ambassador of the Republic of Cuba to Kenya is Inez Flores for Fernandez and is in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning. Balozi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much for your kind invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you, and I'm glad that we can have these conversations because some stuff that we'd love, of course, to get into and get a greater understanding of. And also, in the other hot seat of the Situation Room is Benedict Washira, who is the Secretary of the Kenya-Cuba Friendship Society. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
So, as it would be the reverse in another place, here we put you to work a little bit before we get into conversation. The concept is that we go to around the African continent, and every week we come back from one country with its proverbs, and then we ask you to interpret these proverbs for us. And Dennis will do that with you.
Yeah, so the country we're in today is Angola, right? The 7th largest country in the continent, right? Mm-hmm. Twice as big as France. As the baobab trees in Angola, just amazing. Yeah. But these are the proverbs you're getting from Angola. The one who asks many questions never buys anything. The one who asks many questions never buys anything. Ladies go first. Balozi, how would you interpret it?
Okay. Well, please don't ask me many questions.
Well done. Okay.
And you have bring a very, very nice proverb. I was in Angola for 2 years, so I have had the opportunity to exchange a lot with the Angolan people. And, as I told you before, please don't ask many questions, but, I will be very honored to answer all your questions. Angola is, for me, it was my first time abroad. It was my first missions abroad in my foreign service. So the experience is amazing. It's amazing. But once again, don't ask me many questions, please.
Right. Let's go to Ashira.
Well, I think that as a human being, you must be decisive in whatever you do. You must ask questions, but they must not be too many, and you must make the decisions at the right time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the essence of the proverb.
Right. To make a decision and then be able to go with it. As we enter into this conversation, we'll be talking about, of course, sovereignty. We'll talk about, state responsibility. We'll talk about relationships. But let's start off with the relationship that Cuba has with Kenya. First of all, and see how that has developed over the years. For many people, the length and breadth of that relationship is that there were some Cuban doctors who came to Kenya and shared their expertise. But then that's it. But there's a lot more in that relationship, one would imagine. Balozi, open that up for us a little bit.
Yes, well, we have a very, very close relationship with Kenya, and we enjoyed very cordial relationships since 1995. Even in last year, in October last year, we celebrated 30th anniversary of relationship between Cuba and Kenya. There are some official delegations from Cuba, and there are some Kenyan official delegations who has traveled to Cuba. And in that context, there has been opportunities to exchange a lot of issues, to establish, a kind of cooperation in different areas. So currently, there are many Kenyan students studying medicine in Cuba as part of the Cuban scholarship programs. And there has been more than 100 Kenyans who have studied in Cuba. So Cuba has contributed to the training, or to the training of human resources of Kenyan national forums like the African Union and the United Nations. And I have to point it out, the support we have received from the Kenyan government every year, because Kenyan government has supported the Cuban resolution against the economic, commercial, and financial embargoes over Cuba. So that's something that we appreciate very much. Of course, there are a lot of issues we can improve, we can enhance the relationship with Kenya, because there are many areas, there are many potential between our two countries.
Sure. We talk about friends of Cuba, like Ndu said, the most many of us do know is the fact that we had Cuban doctors in the country who treated us, right? But here now we have an institution, Friends of Cuba, in the country. And What does that entail? What does that mean? I mean, in terms of Kenyans being friends with Cuba, how deeply ingrained is that?
Well, in international relations, there are two types of relationships between countries and peoples. So the first one is the formal relations, that is the diplomatic relations, and the one that is represented by the ambassador here and the ambassador of Kenya to Cuba and so on and so forth. Then there's the people-to-people relations. So this one is not concerned about the diplomacy and what have you, but what is the relationship between the people themselves. There are cultural exchanges, there are political exchanges, there are ideological exchanges. There are many things that the people of Cuba and the people of Kenya can relate into. So we've had some of the scholarships going through the diplomatic channels, some of them going through the Kenya-Cuba Friendship Society. We've had doctors, agricultural engineers, and sports experts being trained, in Cuba for free, full scholarship, 4 or 5 years. You pay nothing, absolutely nothing, and some of these scholarships have come through the society itself. We've had Cubans coming into Kenya wanting to experience the cultural aspects that you might not really experience if you come through the formal channels, and that's where now the people-to-people relations come in. There is the solidarity also. For example, in a country like Cuba, we have the blockade today. It has been there for over 60 years, the economic, financial blockade from the US. So we, as the people of Kenya, are saying, no, we cannot continue having this kind of blockade. So that is something that we, as a people, not as a government, are opposing. Luckily, our aspirations are also aligned to what the Kenya government is saying, because Kenya has supported the ending of the blockade at the United Nations General Assembly for all the years, and has been supported by almost all countries, except 2 or 3. That is the US, Israel, and some other small island I can't remember, then to continue doing. Yes.
So, I mean, that kind of throws us into what would be murky waters, but necessary for us to talk about, because, again, in international relations and diplomatic relations, you find that sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your friend, but in this case, the friend of your enemy is your enemy, so it would be that we cannot run away from geopolitical relationships in this day and age, and that the world basically has called for the lifting of this embargo on Cuba that has been there for decades. Give us a little bit as to the reasoning behind why this happened. It began in 1960, for crying out loud, or in 2026. So that means that there's certain things on this globe that Cuba is precluded from operating in. Why? What did Cuba do?
Well, it's not exactly about behavior.
I get it.
We are very, very good boys and girls. But I think for more than 100 years, the ties between Cuba and the United States has been marked on one hand on the pretensions of our neighborhood to dominate Cuba, but on the other hand, by the determination of Cubans to be free, independent, and sovereign. And, it has a cost. That's what I think. We have a cost. And the strategic goal, the strategic objective of these policies has been to overthrow the Cuban Revolution. And for more than 60 years, Cuba has faced an economic, commercial, and financial blockade, including a lot of actions, a lot of methods. And for instance, we have faced sabotage to our economy. We have faced, attempts to assassinate the Cuban leaders. We have faced a lot of things, even biological wars against Cuba. And the embargo, and more recently, the decision of the U.S. government to include Cuba in the list of countries that sponsor terrorism. But the objective is the same: to overthrow the Cuban Revolution, to overthrow the Cuban constitutional order. That's the main objective. And this is an asymmetric work. This is an asymmetric world with Cuba, a small island, and we are talking about the most powerful country all over the world. So, but they don't stop in this policy they continues, the policy, and even now, I think they have tried tighten these policies toward Cuba.
Okay, so Castro's mechanism at that time, Cuba, and I mean, how dare you nationalize businesses that previously were owned by the almighty US? And it would appear as though that was a poke in the face by Cuba under Castro to the US. Then you would ask the question, what happens to nationalism and what happens to state sovereignty? It's one of the things that we're talking about today. Are we seeing that on this side, when Cuba holds fast to its ideals, that they're talking about holding on to nationalism, patriotism, sovereignty, as opposed to allowing, like you said, the most powerful nation in the world, arguably, at this point? What is it that interests America, the US, with this small island that would keep it in its claws for 60 years?
I think there is small groups in the US. I'm talking about the Cuban Americans, and more recently, the current Secretary of State. I think they have something like a commitment, because it's true, they lost some properties. But those properties were put on the hands of the Cuban populations. The ones, I'm talking about the majority of the Cuban populations. Even Cuba at that time, because there were not only U.S. properties, we are talking about properties from different countries. And Cuba was able to let's say, to indemnize, to pay an indemnization for those properties. So it means that this is not the reason. The reason is that they have lost properties, but they have lost at the same time, they have lost the war within small nations. So that's why they continue pushing in order to recover what they have lost. But we are determined. We are determined to keep our conquers. We are determined to keep our sovereignty. We are determined to keep our independence as a country.
And I think my next question would be, the blockade that has existed for a very long time, it is just not, because when we look at Cuba, the country, but in Cuba, there are people.
Correct.
And when we talk about these blockades and the policies that have been passed by the United States, these are policies that have disenfranchised the Cuban people in one way or the other. So the impact must have been huge, because we're talking about 50, 60 years, of being under this blockade, people not being able to see their loved ones who live in the United States of America, not being able to do business rightfully so, not being able to even tap into the technologies that do exist, simply because of a policy that was made because you were defeated on a war that you shouldn't have been in the first place. And one then asks the question, from Balosi's perspective, what has been the impact and what is the role of the citizens of the world, friends of Cuba, to work together to end that blockade? Because whether we like it or not, the world is one united people. Only borders put in place by one would say the colonialists, or those who came in and drew those borders that never existed in the first place.
Correct. You see, first of all, there are estimates from the UN that say that Cuba has lost over $1.1 trillion. Trillion dollars, that's over 100 trillion Kenya shillings, right? Over the past 6, and this is the UN report.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that is not something that we can joke around. Our budget,
it's for trillion.
Yeah, is much less, for annual budget. So it's a big loss to the Cuban people. They cannot access medical technology, for example. They cannot access machinery for agriculture and what have you. They cannot access a lot of things, because if a country trades with Cuba and wants to also trade with the US will tell them no, because you traded with Cuba, you cannot trade with us. And of course, the US is the biggest economy, and you'd want to trade with it more than you'd want to trade with a small country like Cuba. But sovereignty means that the people must have the right to decide their own future. So in 1959, Cubans decided that their future should be in socialism, their future should be under Fidel Castro, their future should be under a completely different ideological framework than that of the United States of America. So it was their right to do that, right? And the moment we start allowing the US, and it has been doing this for the longest period, if we allow it to interfere with the decisions or the independent decisions of the peoples of different countries, then we are really questioning the role of sovereignty, the role of international law. And as such, the US must be stopped. It is a power today. They think they can do anything. We've seen what they did in Venezuela the other day. They kidnapped a president. We've seen Trump saying he will take Greenland from Denmark. So it's impunity. But history has shown us that all powers eventually fall. All powers eventually fall, but they do not fall on their own. There must be voices. Countries must speak out against these powers. Individuals must speak out against these powers. Media stations like yours must speak out against these powers. So we'll continue with our campaigns. We'll condemn. We will do it on social media. We'll hold demonstrations. We'll write letters and what have you. We'll continue with outreaches like this. But eventually, a time will come when the imperial power of the US will fall. And we hope that it will be sooner than later.
I believe that the next world conflict will not be fought with guns and bombs. That the next major conflict that we see will be an economic one, or it will be a geopolitical one, and it could be akin to the Cold War that took place in the 80s, and 70s, 60s. I mean, it would be akin to that. But sometimes when we think geopolitically, when we think around the realms of international relations, just like that question Dennis is asking, we don't make a connection to that war that's happening in boardrooms and or international assemblies and what is happening on the ground. So when we talk about people suffering, what are we talking about? When we have an embargo for 60 years, that means your goods cannot leave the country and be bought by huge populations. That means that energy is very expensive, I would imagine. But what happens to the people, and I think this is for both of you, what happens to the people, that really what's happening to the people on an island that is resource rich, right? Because I'm also of the opinion that the US wouldn't be bothered with Cuba if it didn't have any resources. Now, how does it affect people, this embargo that we see?
Yeah. Well, the situation is, the embargo has an overwhelming impact. And it affects every sector of the Cuban economy, but it has an special impact on the Cuban population. Sometimes it is said, the policies towards Cuba, it's against the Cuban government. It's not against the Cuban people, but at the same time, it's the Cuban population, the one which is suffering the consequences of the embargo. I would say because, for instance, there is a very sensitive sector. I'm talking about health sector. Cuba used to be at the top in Latin America and the Caribbean in terms of infant mortality. Currently, because of the impact of the embargo, our rate of infant mortality has grown, because we used to have a 5% of infant mortality rate, and currently in the last year, for instance, we have 8.5. The rate will grows to 8.5. So it means that we have a very, very important impact on a very, very sensitive sector, which is, we are talking about the health sector. But it's the same thing with the rest of the sectors. And for instance, we are currently, I was reading the news today, and for instance, our population is suffering a lot of powers, a cut, in the powers and the electricity. And it means that, for instance, we have at least 2-3 hours per day with electricity, with power. So the same thing with medications. We are suffering there because we cannot import raw material to produce at so our biotechnology industry, which is one of the most important source of incomes in Cuba, is being affected by this situation. The sports, education, most of the sectors have been impacted to the, and the embargo. It classifies as a genocide because it affects the most of the Cuban population. It's something that is the main obstacle to the Cuban development, is economic development. So that's a policy, as been told by Washiri. It has been criticized. It has been denounced every year at the United Nations and in many, many, many international forums.
And before that, maybe I'll agree with you that the economy influences the politics, and therefore the interest of the U.S. globally has been the resources of other countries. But with respect to Cuba, is a little bit different because it is an ideological threat. Because Cuba is telling or showing the U.S. and the whole world that somebody can go study from nursery school to the university to the highest level without any debt, graduating with any debt at zero cost. Cuba is showing the U.S. that people can go to hospitals, people can get medication without paying a single cent. So this is a threat to a pharmaceutical industrial complex, which is is based in the U.S. Cuba is showing the U.S. that people can have free housing, right? Even when their country is very poor. Again, this is a threat to the U.S. because housing is a big issue, for the capitalists in the U.S. So the biggest threat that Cuba has been showing the U.S. is not really the economic one, but the ideological one. That things can be done in a different way, and for a country with a lot of resources like the U.S., then things can be done in a better way if they chose a different ideological path. So that is why the U.S. has always been threatened by Cuba. And Cuba is very close to the U.S. The distance between Nairobi and Nakuru is longer, is further than the distance between Cuba and the U.S. And therefore, many Americans can see what is happening in Cuba. There are Americans who could not afford medication, cancer medication and what have you in the U.S., and they had to travel to Cuba to access this medical threat other than the economic one. So, and that is what really threatens the U.S. with respect to Cuba.
And Ambassador, as you're just having this discussion, at the center of it all, personally for me, is the people. Why do I say that? Because the statistics have just given us about mortality of children in the country continues to grow up. Then you connect the dots, because if the country does not get what it needs in its healthcare system, simply because whilst Cuba and the United States are not seeing eye to eye, but Cuba and another country are seeing eye to eye, but this country, simply because of their friendship with the U.S., Cuba is unable to get that. Then one asks the question, even as we walk to the UN every day and condemn it, and we read down the United States of America, if there is no intentional move to see that that problem is resolved, there's nothing we're doing, because we have been condemning it for 60 years. What are we doing? And one would ask the question then, are these institutions that we have around the world that are supposed to bring global order meant to do that, or is the big brother bigger than these institutions that are there to maintain order?
It's a very interesting question. It's true. Nothing happened, because normally people say, well, every year Cuba presents its resolution at the United Nations. But I think it has an impact. It has an impact. It's a moral one, because it's the world recognizing that this policy is not a good one, that this policy has not reaching the results it has as a main objective, but it's very sad. At the same time, it's very sad because the embargo has the commercial financial embargo or blockade, because we call it blockade, has an extraterritorial impact. And so there are many companies, pharmaceutical companies, companies in charge of, supplying foods and raw materials to Cuba, that they are afraid because of the policies towards them. So for instance, a company or a bank, at least a bank, or they could be punished because, doing business with Cuba. At the same time, you have to take into account that Cuba has been included. There is a list at the Department of State, which is the list of countries sponsoring terrorism. So it's an unfair, it's an arbitrary inclusion, but at the same time, it creates a lot of problem, because when Cuba asks for a credit, it's being considered as countries sponsor terrorism, so those banks cannot give us the credit. cannot give us, the resources we need to develop our country. So to create the conditions to overthrow the Cuban Revolution, to overthrow the Cuban example in the war. So that's something that it's a matter of concern. But at the same time, in the current, this year, at the very beginning of the year, it seems that the policies towards Cuba has been, tightened. There have been some cycle, because you could tell me during Obama's administration there was some opening, but afterwards, there was Biden administration, there was Trump administration, and 243 measures against Cuba were adopted. So it means that the idea is to asphyxiate the Cuban, because Cuba is like an example. Why Cuba is still alive in spite of 60 years of pressures. So that's the main concern of the U.S.
Well, sure, does it serve as an example? This is interesting because I can make a connection then between what's happening there and what could possibly happen with other countries around the world. We know that 2025 was the year where a lot of countries on the continent, for example, were thrown into shock because 25 plus years of development aid and funding then looked like it was going to go out the window, right?
Yes.
And of course, with the Trump administration, that meant that it started to ask questions about, okay, who's this money going to and what is happening there? And so aid now that was coming in started to reduce. And significantly, in some cases, those taps were closed completely. We've seen this year, with a furtherance of now quite a number of African countries being closed off from then being able to get immigration documentation, visas and such. The US has said, well, for now, thanks very much, but we're not receiving applications from your country. Thank you. Hold on to that. He's done that, right? And this is a single-handed executive order from the Office of the President of the United States. Could be personality administration. Who knows? But is it giving rise to the very lesson, perhaps, that Cuba has shown, that, using your words, that for 60 years you basically shut the taps, but I'm still breathing? So there's a possibility that you can actually be responsible for your own development. You can be responsible on this global stage, actually make it work. Kicking, screaming, crawling, however, you can somehow make it work?
No, absolutely. And sanctions have never worked anywhere in the world. Whether it is in Cuba, whether it is North Korea, whether it is Iran, whether it is Venezuela, Zimbabwe, history has shown us that sanctions will never work. And before I come to that question, maybe there's a question that you asked the ambassador, but she's a diplomat. So the UN is toothless. It's toothless when it comes to the world powers, and in particular the US. It is clearly toothless. So the US is above the UN. That is what we are being told. And that's what the US... And that's why we are saying that there must be reforms within the UN system. There must be methods of accountability to all UN members. So it is true that the US is a world bully, and it does not respect international law. And it does not respect UN at all. But we still say that there's that moral responsibility for us to continue fighting for sovereignty and international law within the framework that are already there. That said, it is important indeed that countries develop their own independent economic development and growth outside dependency on aid like that from the US aid, on grants and such kind of things. Because we've seen that from what Trump is doing, it is clear that we are under their control, and they are using aid, they are using grants, they are using these bilateral and multilateral relationships to continue dominating us, to continue exploiting us. So we as countries must rise up against this. And we can only rise up by ensuring that, one, we develop our own economies independently of other nations, and two, we have a proper solidarity, real, honest solidarity between genuine nations, not with countries like the US and what have you. For example, Cuba has a lot to offer in terms of biomedical technology. The first time I heard of dengue fever or dengue fever,
yeah,
was about 12, 15 years ago, I had never heard about it, but there were Cuban researchers who are working with our own researchers here at Cambridge so that they could study this virus and come up with ways of resolving it. That is a solidarity kind of relationship that does not impose, conditions and what have you over the others. So it is indeed true that countries must cut themselves off the shackles of imperialism and domination, particularly by the US, the West, and other world powers.
Ambassador, the world today finds itself in a very interesting place, So for 60 years, Cuba has stood its ground and said, no, you will not control us. We will run our businesses. That despite the sanctions, despite the blockade that has been there, we will continue to move forward and continue to provide for our people whichever way we will, right? And this is pretty much the same story just next door in Venezuela. But we see what that has happened. The president of the republic was picked up, simply because he said, this is our oil and we will do business with it whichever way we want. You will not control us. Is being sold to the world. But then ask the question, seeing that happened and the position that Cuba has held for 60 years, what does that communicate? What does that say? What signals is it sending to the Cuban population and leadership today?
So, it's interesting. It's interesting as well, But it's interesting to know that 32 people died in Venezuela. And it sent a message. It sent a message. It sent a message of determination of the Cuban people to continue for 60 years more. And we are taking some measures from the internal and from the external point of view. But we are ready because, we have a history. We have a commitment with our heroes. We have a commitment with the new generations. And we will continue fighting. We will continue because, we know that we have the reason. We know that the future is ours. That in spite of there are some voices that are not so high, Cuba will continue its present. Their commitment with our heroes and with our future generations. That's something very important. It's sad what happened in Venezuela, and what Cuban's position is, and we have condemned in a strong ways the situation, and we are following the news. Of course, we are not here to tell you what the situation is, because taking into account what Shiri has already said, I'm a diplomat, so we have to take care with our opinions, with our criteria. But we know what the position of Cuba has been. But what I can assure you is that we are determined to defend our principles. We are determined to defend our values. Perhaps a lot of people will die defending those principles, those values. But that's the way we are. That's the way we have learned from our heroes, and we have a commitment with the war. We have a commitment because the entire world is looking about Cuba. The entire world is looking about what Cuba is doing, what Cuba is resisting.
Okay. So, I'm going to go back to that example because I do think that there are not a lot of countries, especially in what, the world has termed as a developing world, who are trying to reimagine a world without a big brother status, as it were. That what would you do if that funding dried up completely? And that so long as, when there is a particular person in leadership in a particular country, it's going to affect you in one way or another. So what is it? And again, coming to both of you, what is Cuba doing to stay afloat? What policies have you put in place to ensure that, okay, fine, U.S. business is not coming your way, but what do you do to ensure that you can even send medical personnel to other countries to give their expertise, that you can build your country one block at a time? What do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah, so I think currently we are working in the implementation of a new macroeconomic stabilization program. So it's a comprehensive program It's a very, very comprehensive program, and we are trying, at least we are making our best effort to improve the Cuban economy in spite of, the challenges we are facing. And at the same time, we are creating a more dynamic business environment. So and the idea is to revitalize the Cuban economy. I think it was issued a new portfolio of investments. I was looking the figures, and the new portfolio of investments comprised 426 projects exceeding 30 billion of dollars in 30 sectors. And at the same time, of course, we are strengthening ties with many countries all over the world, or some countries all over the world, And it's like a mixing of internal measures, but at the same time, measures from with our partners, and to improve the investments in Cuba and things like that.
So you have a president in Bermudez who is the first president outside of the Castro family since 1959 to then rule. But it would appear as though he's still in the same position as it has been, whereby Cuba must stand on its own. Is that the same across governance? You alluded to that, to say that we must remain in this position, that we are not going to we're not going to sit on the fence about this. The president still towing the same line today. New president as of January. Is he still towing the same line?
You mean towards Cuba?
Yes.
He says this.
The new president, is he still towing the same line? Is it still the same message that's being put out to the people of Cuba and to the world, that no matter what, we will retain in terms of sovereignty and nationalism, and retain this position that has been there since the embargoes came into place?
You mean the Cuban president?
Yes.
It's the same policy.
Yeah,
it's the same policy. It's a continuity of the position of Cuba, a historical position.
Yeah,
a historical position.
Do you think there are lessons, Washira, here that others can pick up on and say, you know what, they've been locked out of the world literally for 60 years, but you know what, they're making it happen? And that could be because people say, look, when the freeze on aid came, many countries already had said we're done. We are finished. What's going to happen?
It's true. It means that countries must look for alternatives, and they must reprioritize, their economy. For example, when the U.S. aid funding was cut, there was a real risk that ARVs and HIV medication will not be available for our people. So it means that our priority as a country has been upside down, in that health should be a critical sector that must be supported by the state. It must not be dependent. The lives of the people cannot be dependent on aid. So we must reprioritize our economy. Secondly, we must look for alternatives that are within our borders and within countries that are friendly to us. For example, when it comes to energy, I know that Cuba as a country has gone deep into green energy, into alternative forms of energy. Kenya, for example, has a potential in terms of geothermal energy of 6,000 to 9,000 known potential. There's no reason why we are not exploiting this potential to the maximum, yet we know that if we had sanctions today and we were told that we are no longer going to import oil and energy, we will be in problems. So it is important that countries start reorganizing the economy so that they get as much as possible from within their borders in anticipation for policies that are coming from presidents like Trump and others. And the beauty about Trump in his badness is that he is honest. He is open.
Yeah, he's not pretending.
He's not pretending, So unlike Obamas and Clintons and others who will pretend, that we are good, he tells you, I'm going to hit you, and he's hitting you. So he's told Africans that he doesn't value them. In his first term, he called us shit something. He's told South Africans that he will punish them for allegedly killing whites for allegedly passing a law that says the land that your forefathers took by force from our people will be nationalized and used for the benefit of everyone. He is threatening the South Africa, and from what happened in Venezuela, these threats cannot be taken lightly. Just last year, December, he bombed the Nigerians as a Christmas gift, but later he came, or rather the Algerian government came and said that they did it together and they knew.
It was a joint operation.
Joint operation, later.
Yes.
But the immediate reaction was also of shock. They didn't know that, Trump had planned this operation, and he has said as such. So world peace, world harmony is at risk. So countries must reorganize their economies and also probably reorganize their defenses. There are 3 countries in the world, people don't know, that have defeated the US in war, real war. And the first one was North Korea. The second one was Vietnam, at huge human cost.
Yeah.
And the third one was Cuba in 1961, when the Americans trained some soldiers and deployed them, thousands of soldiers, deployed them into
missile
Cuba.
crisis, yeah.
And they were defeated. The Bay of Pigs war. They were defeated. They were humiliated. So we must organize our defenses and know that there is a threat to peace as long as the US is there, as long as imperialism continues running the world.
I look at it differently, right? Like we've said, the next world war isn't about bombs, isn't about physical war. It's about geopolitics. And we talk about geopolitics. We have the big brother who wants to control everybody else. But what if everybody else stood together against the big brother? Why do I say that? Because even as we speak about the sanctions that have been given to different countries or the tariffs in different countries, what's the bottom line? It's business, right?
Correct.
If you want to do business with us, you must come and invest here. So they're still looking at what they need from each and every single other country there is.
Correct.
But because everyone else is speaking one language, that you cannot boss us, that we also have a say, we are the citizens of the world and we are independent citizens of sound mind who can make our own decisions. What would it look like if the world spoke in unison and said, we will not bow down to an oppressor, that we will work with those we want to work with, despite of who you think you are? Because if you want to sell your tractors as United States of America to Kenya, we could decide to buy those tractors from another vendor and leave you with your tractors. What would that look like? And perhaps, Balozi, should that be the focus the world is looking at?
I think you are talking about unity, you are talking about integration, and those are values that we have to recover, that we are losing as well. Is the value of multilateralism. That's something very important, because we have said something regarding geopolitical issues. We are saying something regarding challenges. You are talking about conflicts. You are talking about wars. You are talking about a lot of bad things, to say at least a phrase. So unity, international cooperation, solidarity are words that we have to look for. And I would like to talk about Cuba, because I'm the Cuban ambassador, and we have been always ready to give. We are being always ready to express, and with real facts, to express that a better war is possible, that if we are united, we are stronger. And for instance, I'm just remembering when I was ambassador to the Gambia. It's a very, very small country in Africa. And it was amazing, because there was a Cuban medical team working there. It was around 100 Cuban doctors and nurses. And and this small country, the public health system was covered just by Cuban doctors. And so it means that if we unite, and Cuba is not a rich country, So if we are united, if we help each other with one and each other, I think the world could be much better, and we will get more respect from the big brother. That's something that I'm thinking of. But integration is a must. Unity is a must. Solidarity is a must in the current times, and we cannot avoid the value of multilateralism, because a country by itself cannot move the world.
Stabilization would say, being rich is not in how much you have in the bank, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Being rich is in moving to countries and helping with the healthcare system, even when you yourself is struggling with your own healthcare system. Richness is not in how many bombs you have.
That's true.
But as we talk about unity, what would unity of countries coming together and speaking that language and walking the talk, not just talking?
No, first of all, there must be the ideological unity of these countries that are coming in. They must agree that you're calling it bullying, I'm calling it imperialism, is an enemy to world peace, So once they agree on this economic foundation to all these developments that we are seeing. But what supports or what strengthens this kind of moves is the military. So, for example, the US has always wanted the Venezuelan oil, which has the world's highest known reserves. They've tried sanctions, they've tried everything, and it has failed. So what do they do next? They send in Delta Force, they send in their military. So if the imperialist competition for resources, world resources, continues unabated, then there's real risk that we might go into a world war, and perhaps we wouldn't want to go there, but perhaps that is the point when the end of the US will come in and will usher in a new world order. But to prevent that, countries must be brave to speak against those in power, to speak against power itself. When the Venezuelan president was abducted, kidnapped, most of these countries were quiet. African countries, European countries, many of them went quiet. Why? Because they were intimidated. Maybe they thought they'd be next if they spoke. But if they spoke, and they spoke in one voice, then it will deter such kind of international law violations in the future. So it must start with speaking out. It must continue with economic solidarity, and people must be politically aligned against imperialism, against U.S. bully, against Western imperialism, against interference that is not aligned with the aspirations of the people of the particular country.
Yeah. You alluded towards unity, and I think that's come that I think about past leaders who were probably put in the same box as regional strongmen and agents of terrorism. And one of the men that comes to mind is Muammar Gaddafi. What he wanted for African nations is along the lines of what we speak about today, that in your current situation, what is the best you can do with what you have? And we do have regional bodies. I mean, for crying out loud, the African Union is funded by external, funding. The Organization for African Unity, with its original tenets, meant certain things, but that's kind of fallen along the wayside. The United Nations that you speak of, interestingly enough, formed after the League of Nations, formed in that time after the Second World War. But the people who sat to make the decisions are still the people that we're talking about today, if we want to be honest. Is there, and I know that there's probably a lot of aversion towards any kind of unification of countries who may have been previously stepped on or looked down upon. But is that the way to go into the future?
Absolutely, particularly for Africa. We can only develop if we unite, Pan-Africanism is a spirit that has been there. They have tried to kill it. It started with the likes of Kwame Nkrumah. It was promoted by the likes of Lumumba. We had Muammar Gaddafi coming in and saying that Africa must unite. We must have one currency. We must share our resources. We must... and even the AU itself, or OAU, most of the funding was coming from Libya, and after the fall of Libya, we are having all these problems. So for Africa to prosper, Africa must unite, because these borders are artificial. There's no reason why Kenya cannot access the Somali sea line and the maritime benefits that are there. There's no reason why somebody from Ethiopia cannot access energy from other countries, and they have to do all this damming and what have you. There's no reason why a country might go in hunger when countries like DRC, Zambia, Zimbabwe can feed the whole of Africa quite comfortably.
Right.
So the question of unity of African people and African states is quite critical. And if you start with Africa, go to maybe South-South relations and so on and so forth. But that is unity that must be done under Pan-Africanism and under the thought of the likes of Kwame Nkrumah and Muammar Gaddafi.
You sit in a diplomatic space, Balozi, obviously, and the art of diplomacy, essentially, as we've been told by, is something that's practiced, but that doesn't take away from the passion, obviously, for nationhood. Do we see a situation going into the future where some of these things will start to turn on their head? Will they change with the things that we've spoken about?
I cannot lose. We cannot lose the hope. So if you lose the hope, so we are in the hands of the enemy. So we have to keep working, and diplomacy, it's a science. It's a science of building bridges. So I think there are many areas to cooperate, and even areas like culture, because culture has a lot of things to do. When you look at Cuba, it's a very distant country, and Africa, and there are a lot of points of commons. Because many centuries ago, a lot of Africans were taken as slaves to Cuba. And so we are talking about 400,000. There is African blood in our veins. So it means culture is a very important issue. When you're talking about sports, there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues that we need to rescue in order to improve and to create a better environment in the world. It's a must. It's a necessity for the future generation. Absolutely. Because if we don't do it, of course, we will be in the third world war, taking into account what is happening, the lot of challenges we are facing currently. So if we don't act, if we don't put all our tools or all our energies in doing that, nobody knows what could happen in the near future.
Absolutely. Yes. And conversations like this, I guess, make sure that needle is moved.
Absolutely.
Thank you both for being here this morning.
Thank you so much for the kind invitation.
We appreciate that. Benedict Washira is the Secretary of the Kenya-Cuba Friendship Society, and Inez Forrest Fernandez, Balozi Ambassador of the Republic of Cuba to Kenya. Thank you, both of you, for coming in to have this conversation again with us. We look forward to more. Asante Sana. Thank you, everybody, for being part of Kenya's biggest conversation this Thursday. We continue with more. Enjoy the rest of your listening. Good morning at 10:01.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has warned that a funding shortfall of 13 billion Kenya shillings could disrupt preparations for the 2027 general elections. IBC CEO Hussein Marjan says the deficit threatens staff salaries, acquisition of electronic equipment, and overall election readiness. The commission requires 7.63 billion Kenya shillings for salaries and is also grappling with 5.7 billion